Howdy, 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 my name is Anachi Sasuke. Welcome back to Let's Read the SCP Foundation Wiki. Before I get started, I just want to point out that because of the way I record the bigger episodes, the audio quality might sound a little bit different throughout the video, and that's because right now I'm recording it at my friend's apartment and the room is bigger and there's a bit of an echo, but the rest of it's probably going to be recorded at my house, which might still have an echo, but might also have fan noises in case another heat wave kicks up. So if at any point during recording all of these little 20 entry episodes, there's fan noises, but not in the whole video, it's because I recorded it in different places. So, in this episode, we're going to be starting with Zoroaster's Well, and working our way up to Logos, I think. Because we did 1200 in the last episode. So, Zoroaster's Well. I kept reading Toaster. It looks like this one has the little rainbow thingy on it. I guess each page has different stuff that other pages don't have. Because last episode we had a page that looked completely different from the rest of the website. I don't know what that was about. So, it's Euclid. A 50-meter perimeter around Area 1201 is to be maintained at all times. Testing into the nature of SCP-1201-2 is to be done promptly and without hindrance to the route of 2 to prevent a possible containment breach of 3. Any change in behavior by 2 is to be immediately reported to the site director and the area is to be put on lockdown. Changes in containment procedures are currently being drafted as of the incident outlined in Document C. Description: 1201 is a shallow wall fountain located in Damascus, Syria. The fountain itself displays no anomalous properties save for its use by 2. Although 2 appears to enter 1201 during separate manifestations, entrance by Foundation personnel does not seem to be possible. An investigation is currently underway to determine whether or not the placement of the well is purely coincidental. SCP-1201-2 appears to be a large, completely hairless chimpanzee, similar in size to an average adult human male. Strength and agility exhibited by 2 is not considered to be abnormal relative to its size. The entity materializes within 40 to 48 meters of 1201 each year on blankety blank at 23-23-46 with severe injuries including third-degree burns, severed limbs, deformities consistent with exposure to triflic acid, or triflic acid, however you say it, and holes scattered around the body. 2 regenerates in the space of 12.3 seconds before attempting to return to 1201. An outline of a typical occurrence can be found in Document A. Attempts to halt the process of 2 towards 1201 have been effectively unsuccessful, as the entity appears to assault researchers when coerced, and prolonged confinement of the entity seems to produce an adverse effect originating near 1201. 2 is not hostile towards researchers during its manifestations, but will actively attempt to remove or disable barriers between it and 1201. 2 appears to be highly vulnerable to electrical shock, but further attempts to halt the progress of 1201 are not recommended due to the events outlined in Document B. Okay, so here's Document A, Events of Blankety Blank 2002 at Area 1201. Forward. 5th recorded incidents and observation of the manifestation of 2. The entity was questioned alongside researchers keeping pace with the movement of the entity on a pre-constructed motion track. The entity was visible for 20 seconds before disappearing into 1201. 2 manifests 47 meters from 1201. Subject appears heavily bruised around the torso and face, with third-degree burns covering the body. 12 appears to regenerate to typical appearance in the space of 12.3 seconds before righting itself and sprinting towards 1201. Agent Breen attempts communication. The hell do you guys want? What are you doing? Gonna meet Beth. Who is Beth? A real bitch. What is Beth? A bitch. Thank you for your cooperation. Disappears into 1201. End log. Document B, Events of Blankety Blank 1999, Area 1201. Forward, 2nd recorded incidents and observation of the manifestation of 2. Entity was temporarily disabled with a prefabricated electrical field after regenerating. The entity was incapacitated for 18 seconds before power to the grid was removed by Agent Sanders and 2 was released. You are going to want to cooperate with us. The fuck is your problem? 2 attempts to break from the electrical current, but is not successful. We're going to need some information before you go anywhere. Not telling you shit! 1201 begins shaking and partially fractures from its foundation. A long, smooth black mass with the appearance of a tongue, which will henceforth be referred to as 3, can be seen partially probing from 1201. The tongue stretches in length over 40 meters towards Agent Sanders. Agent Sanders terminates the power to the containment on 2. 2 rights itself and collides with the appendage of 3, making contact and crashing into a wall. Flames begin to funnel out from the mouth of 1201, and 2 is severely burned. 2 is pulled into the air by 3. You bitch! 2 has the tip of the appendage in a headlock 20 meters above ground. 2 begins tearing into the skin of the appendage with its teeth. 3 falls to the ground with 2. Flames begin to increase in volume from the mouth of 1201. Temperature in the immediate area increases by 20 degrees Celsius. 2, still in possession of the end of 3, dives into the mouth of 1201. Okay, Document C, Events of Blankety Blank 2003, the 6th recorded incident blah 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 blah. The entity was questioned alongside researchers keeping pace with the movement of the entity on a pre-constructed motion track, visible for 21 seconds before disappearing into 1201. Manifests 49 meters, appears with a large hole in its torso, appears to regenerate to typical appearance 12.3 seconds before getting up and sprinting. Agent Breen tries to communicate. You guys are persistent. Please, tell us what you're doing. Fine. Since you're so fucking adamant about it, this has been going on for quite some time. Beth just doesn't know when to give up. I'm trying to teach it who the real king of Candyland is. You're being facetious. 1201 jumps into the air, maintaining momentum while delivering a kick to Agent Breen's head. Agent Breen's head is severed and explodes on impact with a nearby wall. 2. You're ruining the fun. 2 disappears into 1201. End log. What do you mean it jumps into the air? I thought it was... It's a well. Okay, document blank, events of blank blank 2000 something, area 1201. Oh, it's a whole page. Okay. Forward, blank recorded incidents and observation of the manifestation of 2. The entity was questioned alongside researchers keeping pace with the movement of the entity on a pre-constructed track, visible for 15 seconds before disappearing with Agent Sanders into 1201. 2 manifests 40 meters to 1201, appears in a viscous pink fluid with mild burns covering the body. 2 appears to regenerate to typical blah 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 blah. Agent Sanders tries to communicate. You again there, boss! Howdy fucking do! Your compliance with testing protocol would be greatly appreciated. You sure about that? She ain't gonna fuck everything up? Yes? You better not be a fucking noob. Grabs Agent Sanders by the right leg and disappears into 1201. End log. Document personal notes. Oh, this is from Sanders talking? Okay. There was no sign of any place where we could have arrived, no entrance, no device for travel. I checked my pulse, felt along my skin, slightly elevated heartbeat, and I was mildly warm. I would have to say that at that time I was also fairly distressed, so I apologize for any inaccuracies in advance. After the entity released my leg and dropped me, I found myself on the surface of a very small, empty, rocky planet. The sun was at least 3 times as large in the sky, if it was the sun we know of. I would not be surprised if it was Mercury, although this thought was briefly quelled as I could see what appeared to be a large flaming serpent making loops in the distance on the sun's surface. Strangely enough, I did not have trouble breathing or staring directly into the sun, and I was not at all affected by the intense heat. When questioned, 1201-2 responded with, "It's just the fucking atmosphere." When questioned if this was the place it always returned to when 2 entered the well, it responded, "That will be lame as fuck." 2 appeared to be running in place for a few brief moments before the next event happened. I found that I could not advance either. When questioned, I was told that it's fucking countdown, so I remained walking in place as 2 was doing. I fell forward on my face after hearing a large crystalline chime, and 2 began laughing and issued a slur of insults before disappearing far ahead of me. When I got my footing, I found that moving was rather effortless, and I was running at about 3 times as fast as I normally can. The experience was quite exhilarating, if you don't mind me saying. I asked it where we were going. It told me that we gotta find Beth and kill that bitch. Like you, I wasn't entirely sure who Beth was, or why 1201-2 wanted to kill it, so I just continued running alongside 2. In time, I could see an enormous black mass of tentacles floating in the distance. I asked 2 what it was, and it told me it was fucking cheap as shit. When I asked to clarify the specific nature of the entity, 2 told me it's just fucking overpowered. So, being a bit hesitant, I slowed down a bit and let 1201-2 take the lead. When we got a bit closer, it spoke. I'm not sure I can recall its exact words, but it kept referring to 1201-2 as its bitch and that he sucked so bad. 2 was visibly upset and told it that it should make the first move. That's when the entity, which I'm assuming to be 3, advanced onto and began whipping its tentacles wildly at it. The motions themselves were peculiar in the sense that each separate attack by 2 and 3 did not differ in motion in the least bit and was accompanied by a matching cry. I'm fairly certain I saw 2 instantly right itself about 4 times after being struck by the tentacles. Yeah, right. After that, 2 told me, "I'm getting low, fucking help me, you fucking noob." Which I have to say was completely nonsensical because he just allowed the thing to attack him in the first place. I'm sorry, I'm getting off track here. 2 retreated, froze in place, and began glowing in a green light. I was forced to attack the entity myself or run from it as its attention was now turned to me. I was caught off guard momentarily by a blinding light emanating from 3's center and was unable to move for one reason or another. 2 told me that if I wasn't a fucking noob, I could glitch stuns. I'm not entirely sure what he was referring to, but after 1 or 2 seconds I could move again. That's when one of its tentacles pierced through me. I saw an explosion of gore from my chest, but I felt absolutely no pain whatsoever, and the gore itself disappeared into the air. After seeing this, I was a bit more motivated to approach 3 and speak to it, as I was sure it could not harm me. I continued running toward the creature, trying to ignore the circling clouds of tentacles and gore around my body. I asked it what it was, but there was no response. It seemed rather focused on attacking me. After a short time, I started moving more slowly, and I could hear a loud heartbeat sound in my head. I could see 2 circling in on it from behind out of the corner of my eye. The heartbeat noise in my head was definitely loud at that point, and I could barely move, and that's when I heard 2's voice yell, "You lost, bitch!" followed by 3 exploding. A voice, the location it was produced from I cannot specify, asked 2 how it got a fucking NPC in a deathmatch before I reappeared at Area 1201. Okay, so it sounds like it's somebody's video game, which I guess is called Zoroaster's Well. Alright, next up is The Lost Voice. So, I mean, not The Lost Voice, just Lost Voice. It's Euclid 2. The subject exposed to 1202 is to be quarantined from other site staff and personnel unless outfitted with clothing completely covering their entire body. A skin suit is equipped to the exposed subject after transfer of 1202. The afflicted subject is to transfer access to 1202 to one other test subject before termination or death. It is recommended that 1202 be tested on disposable dudes already scheduled for termination. Description: SCP-1202 was recovered beneath a frozen lake near sites someplace in Canada. Personnel reported trouble sleeping and auditory hallucinations that often revert to the location of 1202. A team was sent to investigate the lake based on the collective reports. A small wooden canoe was discovered in fragments on the lake bed next to an irregular ice formation. The chamber behind the blockage was empty save for the frozen and emaciated remains of the body of one human male, later DNA tested and carbon dated, thusly identified as belonging to tribes once native to the lower portion of South America 800 years ago. The corpse itself has no interesting properties except the position of the body. One hand is fixed on the forehead, and the other appears to be working an out-absent object into its ear canal. Whether the cause of death is suicide or cold is unconfirmed. The agent who first made physical contact with the corpse began to hear a voice that did not cease until he had made contact with another human. The exposed disposable dude reported hearing the voice after grasping Agent Blank's hand and indefinitely afterwards. The exact mechanism that enables this transfer is unknown, as is the manner in which 1202 communicates with the subjects. SCP-1202 will converse with the afflicted subjects, lecturing them about a variety of topics, notably theoretical physics, biology, and the classified study of data expunged. The psychological effect tends to be detrimental as the voice rarely ceases to talk for periods any longer than 20 seconds. The current disposable dude responsible for bearing it has requested to be euthanized at 1 week. The voice classified as 1202 identifies itself as blank blank, a former researcher at Site 18. Whether or not 1202 is Dr. Blank Blank is still being debated, although inquiries expressed to test subjects bearing 1202 match archive profiles of the late researcher. Documentation transcript from Agent Blank. Forward. Agent Blank began hearing the voice while in the company of the coroner who was examining the body found in the cave. Agent notified the site director. He was then tasked to record his initial conversation with 1202. Hello, can you hear me? I know you can hear me. Oh, good. I've been expecting someone to come along, and here you are. You've touched him, didn't you? My old friend? Yes, him. The one I had the falling out with ages ago. I was just having a conversation with him, and then you came along. What, him? The frozen one with the splinter in his head. Oh, yes, of course he's dead. Are you stupid? Stupid one he was, too, my old friend. No offense to him, but it's true. Love him to death, that stupid one. He thought he could run. He ran all the way here. The man crossed an entire continent to get away from me, ended up with a hole in the ice jamming a pick into his ears. I told him not to, again and again. Who am I? I'm redacted. Who am I? I'm responsible for data expunge. The entire organization owes a great debt to me. Of course you're interested. Yes, I'll tell you, but first I'd like to chat about the things we can both understand. You see that man in front of you? Yes, the one with the beard. I'm gonna need you to kill him for me. Yes, I'm serious. How else will we get into headquarters undetected? He has the key card, he has access to redacted, and once I get to it, I can be done with all this mess. No. Should have figured you weren't the type. Oh well. No, don't tell him you're hearing things. What, you already did? Are you an idiot? How long have you been working here to be stupid enough to tell them you're hearing things? Well, at least I know why you're recording what I'm saying. I figured you were just insane to begin with. That's a relief. You know, they're going to throw you into one of those rooms now. They'll have you drink that gelatin that perverted doctor isn't allowed to touch. Worse, they'll keep me in here. I'm just far too interesting for them to get rid of. How? That is a good question. Although you're too stupid to understand, let's say I was playing with strings and struck a wonderful note. Yes, I'm referring to that, you dunce. You're familiar with the concept, sure. I bet you're familiar with the theory of relativity, too. Familiar like how I'm familiar with my strange uncle. I mean learned, my stupid friend. Learned and familiar like how I'm familiar with your brain. No, technically I'm not alive. Not in a biological sense, no. You wouldn't understand. The Aztec men? I'm guessing roughly 1,000 years ago, yes. I failed miserably at poking sticks into space-time. What? No, I'm not going to explain. You wouldn't understand. No, I'm not going anywhere. We've hardly even met. How rude of you. No, he's humming now. He won't stop humming. He's been humming loudly for several hours. I wonder which researcher that's supposed to be. Okay, next up is Auroboros. Or Auroboros, however you want to say it. That's 1203. It's a Euclid. SCP-1203 is assigned to a 3x2x2 meter containment cell. The living space at Site-17 is outfitted with steel walls and one solid barred door that locks from the outside. There is to be one guard on duty at all times near the cell to ensure 1203 does not attempt a self-termination or auto-abort. It is recommended that the subject be dosed persistently with the prescribed antipsychotic medicines, and mild narcotics to avoid this possibility. These medicines should be replaced with restraints during 1203's pregnancies. What? 1203 is to be restrained at times when not under supervision. At no time is 1203 allowed to leave Site-17. 1 to 3 hours before death, 1203 will begin seizing, followed by a state similar to catatonia, and ending in a cease of all bodily functions. Time of death is recorded after a pulse is shown in the newborn, rather than the mother's natural death. Termination attempts on 1203 as of the incident with researcher assistant Blank are indefinitely on hold. Reference log from failed termination 1203B. That better be in here. I want to know what happened. Description. SCP-1203 is a human female, approximately 20 years of age, identifying by the name Miranda. Miranda has been in containment for approximately 95 years, or 5 cycles as of 1203's next natural death and birth. Miranda was discovered in Mexico. Agent Blank began investigating with a lead based on local reports of disappearances near the Feathered Serpent Pyramid. Reference blank blank in the blank newspaper, La Policía Rescata a Bebe en Pyramid. I probably said that terribly. 1203 was discovered near the pyramid summit, accompanied by members of the Serpent's Hand. A mother 1203 could not be located. At 21 years of age, 1203 undergoes a process similar to parthenogenesis, resulting in the conception of one genetically identical human fetus. At an embryonic level, this form of reproduction is comparable to the aforementioned medical phenomenon. However, new instances of 1203 are not developmentally inhibited and do not benefit from any natural extended longevity. 1203 during any stage of her life has an identical biological profile to previous instances of 1203. A definite date cannot be placed on the length of the existence of 1203. I was calling her Miranda. I messed up. The condition suffered by Miranda is unique in that memories are also transferred from the mother to the newborn. Variances in the progeny of Miranda are represented in the sense that Miranda maintains memory of her previous lifespans. This experience of rebirth and the recollection of the event have a noticeable and detrimental psychological effect on her. Based on these observations, we can assume Miranda is lucid in infancy and during birth. Yeah. It sounds like that one lady from the recent X-Men comics. Okay. Addendum 1203 something 1223 1991. Excerpt from interview. Translated revision. Tell us more about your family history. I can only remember back to my 8th grandmother, but... Well, I only remember back to my 8th grandmother, but only little bits and pieces. I recall other things, but they're kind of like a dream that you forget after you wake up. Tell us the experience you have after death. I fall asleep and I wake up. It's dark and then I feel warm. I see a light like a tunnel and I'm back again. How's the experience of being born traumatic? I trust you do not mean the last time. I can still hear that poor man screaming. No. I remember it. I'm there in both places and I'm pushing myself out. It is unpleasant. Would you like the cycles to end? Yes, and I would like to fly as well. Log from failed termination B. Forward. Due to lack of any discernible benefit to the Foundation and the current mental state of Miranda, a termination was scheduled on blankety blank blank under supervision of the late research assistant blank. The attempt to abort cyclical rebirth of the subject took place shortly after 1203's first labor contractions. The decision to abort rather than terminate 1203 was reached on basis that more could be learned in regard to the nature of 1203 in this manner. Extraction was performed successfully, the newborn having been completely removed and separated from the mother. The mother was then pronounced dead. During the cranial potassium injection, the mother, as well as the newborn's husk, began to data expunged. What followed was a reportedly indiscernible eruption of viscera from research assistant blank. Both instances of 1203 were found afterwards to be undamaged. The newborn recovered completely after the incident. No abnormal potassium levels were present. Researcher assistant blank was found afterwards completely drained of fluid, his circulatory system inverted and strewn from the mouth. The autopsy revealed no marks on researcher assistant blank that would be indicative of a physical assault. No other anomalies were found save for extra hair growth of 300 millimeters, a scar 1.067 millimeters in diameter on the forehead, and an extreme case of hyperkalemia. So I don't know about the hair growth, but the scar on the forehead sounds like it could have been a reference to a C-section? And it sounds like what happened was when he tried to make the Auroboros stop, it just exploded him and was like, yeah, no, we're still happening. Because isn't the Auroboros the snake that eats itself? Well, I can't double check that because I'm still using Bing and Bing doesn't. I can use my cell phone, hang on. Shut up, Facebook. Auroboros. Or Auroboros. I like how the first result it gave me was an episode of Fear the Walking Dead, but it also tried to redirect me straight to the SCP. I'm just looking for the dang word. Okay, yes, it is the snake eating itself. Or a serpent or a dragon. Originating in ancient Egyptian iconography, the Ouroboros entered Western tradition via Greek magic tradition, and was adopted as a symbol in Gnosticism and Hermeticism, and most notably in alchemy. The term derives from ancient Greek that tail plus eating. The Ouroboros is often interpreted as a symbol for eternal cyclical renewal or a cycle of life, death, and rebirth. The skin sloughing process of snakes symbolizes the transmigration of souls. The snake biting its own tail is a fertility symbol in some religions, and the tail of the snake is a phallic symbol. The mouth is a yonic or womb-like symbol. Okay, sure. Anyway, the social disease. You mean Facebook? No, probably not. It's also Euclid, though. Let's see. Containment procedures. Deceased specimens of 1204 are stored within Site 77. Why is that a link? Okay, it's just a dossier of Site 77. Or dossier, sorry. As 1204 does not survive in captivity or any other domestic environment, any instances identified in the wild are to be observed by Mobile Foundation research teams and facilitated by Mobile Task Force Pi 1 City Slickers. Ethics Committee guidelines suggest any 1204 host should be euthanized after concluding relevant research. Well, dang. Monitoring of municipal government records has been discontinued probably supposed to say due to instead of to its ineffectiveness in locating 1204 specimens. Description: SCP-1204 is a human being which hosts a parasitic semicorporeal being of unknown composition. CT scans of hosts reveal a tumor-like mass of varying size and location within the brain. Autopsies have shown the parasite to be invisible, detectable only through electrical pulses made upon contact. The spread of 1204 occurs through oral contact between two humans, so don't kiss each other. Wait, is that why it's called social disease? It's not a social media joke, it's just don't kiss people or you die from invisible worm tumors. That's a message. The spread of 1204 occurs through oral contact between two humans. A contracting mass of pharynx tissue will elongate through the mouth of an infested subject and into the uninfected oral cavity. This process requires extended oral contact, so long kissing. Or I guess CPR. But probably long kissing. What follows has not been studied thoroughly enough to conclusively document, but it is known that both subjects will be 1204 carriers following contact. All known specimens of 1204 have been transient or homeless persons, believed to have been suffering from various debilitating conditions prior to the infection. It is not known if this made them predisposed to infection, or if it is more reflective of the general health of the population. The behavior and personality of 1204 changes markedly after infection. They will become increasingly hypersocial, devoting significant amounts of time to seeking out physical contact. 1204 will experience strong feelings of loneliness, as well as extreme idealization of one potential romantic partner. Sexual interaction occurs only incidentally. Physical symptoms of subjects with long-term 1204 include persistent internal bleeding, memory alterations, and small but inevitable fatal tears near the rear of the nasal cavity and ventral portions of the brain. I'm not sure why I say brain like that, but when it's at the end of sentences, I just like to say it like that. This suggests a toe on brain tissue during migration. Toe? Tau? Reasons behind the lethality of 1204 are not yet known. Physical degradation does not correspond with the parasite's physical bodily interactions. Post-mortem examination revealed the absence of a hippocampus. Some evidence exists to show that 1204 subjects may recall experiences and muscle memories of previous hosts, but this has not been confirmed. Once nearing expiration, 1204 will cease seeking out further hosts for infection and will attempt to locate an uninhabited structure or region. Once alone, 1204 will typically find a small space to expire inside of, such as caves or crawl spaces. The remains rapidly decompose until skeletal. Scavengers will not feed on the remains. Foundation morticians are to use this detail to identify 1204 in the field. SCP-1204 was discovered after an unusual string of murder and suicide reports were uncovered by Foundation search algorithms reviewing local papers from portions of the lower southeastern United States, ranging from Palm Harbor, Florida to Clarksville, Tennessee. This linked string of incidents seems to have coincided with over the course of 10 years and involved more than blank 100 individuals before 1204 was detected by the Foundation and recovered. The origin has yet to be discovered due to a lack of public records regarding its victims. Addendum. Journal entry of 1204-45, the only known first-person primary source detailing 1204's effect on mental faculties. It is cataloged within Site 77's records as Document 12. Original document was written on a variety of surfaces, including toilet paper, strips of cardboard, and Bible pages. Let's see. Good signs today on St. George. Spaceship broken, need parts was my favorite. But that was before I saw you when a sign came down and there was that face stubbled and dirty, but handsome and stoic. Strong. Generous, gave out coffin nails like candy. I'll just preface this by saying that I always felt like I could never be too close to you. I felt that way for a while. I hope you're at peace wherever you are now. It feels like you're so far away now. I don't know how I'm going to get through this. Irrelevant material redacted. Please don't get angry at me for my friends. You say they're greedy, but I might need a smell fungus tonight. It just hurts. It hurts so bad. I need someone to help ease the pain. Why did you have to die? I just feel like when we're hugging and stuff, that I want to be closer, you know? Like, I can't be any more close to you than possible. It's like, I don't know. Sorry. I'm such a classomaniac. It's such a weird feeling. Like when we're lying down together. Like I just want to. I don't know. Like be you for just a second. Oh, that doesn't sound too creepy. I love you. Can't wait to smell you again. Yeah. I jumped the first guy I saw at the camp. No kissing or anything? I'm really a piece of work, aren't I, Grace? Paul would hate me if he knew what I was doing. I'm just so fucking lonely. Maybe I'm trying to shake off Paul. I don't fucking know anymore. If I don't already have Cupid's itch, I'm probably gonna get it soon. Come by my place later so we can talk, okay? How sweet are the sounds of lips pressed against their bumping gums and grinders sick. What? Indentation which was erased by the author. What the heck? Okay. That. Wow. How many times does it say it? Fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. Let me the fuck out, you stupid pigs! You want to keep the lips for yourself, you stupid jealous gunner! That's why you have me locked in here, because you want him all to yourself! This is all part of your stupid plan, dumbhole. I didn't even care. I'll put you in the bone orchard. Convict me. You just put me in here so you could have them throw my guts out. Let me inside. I want you. I don't want me. I don't want me. It says I can be with you. If I can get to you, we can both be with you when I get to you. 45 was not recovered for interview. Their journal entries were found by MTF Pi 1 in an abandoned house during reconnaissance operations. DNA was lifted from the documents, although they have not been matched to any 1204 remains to date. Okay then. Alright, next up is the wallflower. The wallflower is safe. We finally got something safe in the 1200s. Everything has been Euclid so far if we don't count 1201, because that thing being safe is a fucking lie. So, SCP-1205 should be kept in a windowless containment cell with low light, facing a surveillance camera. What? Is the surveillance camera part of the containment, or is that just so y'all can watch it? Because it says it's safe, it's not going anywhere. Air quality tests should be performed on a monthly basis, and the atmosphere adjusted to prevent mold formation. Personnel monitoring the live surveillance will be alerted by an alarm in the event of any change in the object's size or shape. Observation of the live video feed itself is discouraged until more information on Incident 1205G something is available. Description. Well, that's an incident report link and a half. 1205 appears to be a patch of decaying floral print wallpaper, still attached to a cutaway segment of wall. The paper appears to be aged and flaking, and seems vulnerable to burning, both with fire and various chemicals, and cutting as comparable vinyl-free wallpapers. Subjects instructed to intentionally damage the item reported hearing a sustained shriek, as if from a far distance, reminiscent of the ascending pitch of a tea kettle's whistle. Within 24 hours, any portions of paper destroyed will reappear on the wall in their former location and in identical condition. Fragments removed by cutting or tearing inevitably crumble into a fine dust within minutes, reappearing after the same 24-hour period. The item has also been observed to change shape and size at irregular intervals. These changes have never added or subtracted more than 6 square centimeters from the object's approximate surface area. Under experiment conditions, interaction with the object has not been observed to produce any psychological, physical, or other damages, short or long term. However, controversy surrounding Incident 1205G suggests that further testing for perception-altering influences is necessary. Incident Report G is required reading for all personnel assigned to 1205. Note: the following file contains excerpts from Dr. E.G.'s personal notes and logs. All references to Foundation staff and family members have been censored. Descriptions of events by Dr. G, which have since been disputed by eyewitnesses, are annotated accordingly. How long is this? Okay, May 16th. Yes, someone believes in second chances. Either that or I haven't caught the punchline. New assignment against all odds. Looks like wallpaper. E can't stand the sight of it, but wished me luck. Started with measurements today, nothing too interesting. One of the Ds was sneezing and itching from the beginning. Turned out he was allergic to the fabric on his new suit. His appearance changed more than the SCP's. May 17th. Damaged chest, it cuts, tears, and burns like paper. No unusual components in the ash or smoke. The The fragments fell apart, though, which at least indicates that this isn't someone's idea of a hoax. He isn't here today, off-site somewhere and redacted. Sitting in the observation booth where it's quiet. Must have been an hour or two by now. Can't help wondering what that paper would have looked like, covering some old parlor wall. The red flowers look like poppies. The colors would have been striking before the paper browned. Stupid thought. Maybe it never looked any different than it does now. Note, this is the first instance of the subject appearing preoccupied with the contained item. However, as other personnel pointed out, the subject's remarks do not necessarily indicate fixation. May 18th. All the portions removed and destroyed have grown back. The spots don't look newer either. They show the same sign of age and decay as before. The D's seem fine. We'll have them clinically and psychological screened to be sure. I don't like the sound of my own hypothesis when it comes to what might happen next. Really look forward to telling E. He always calls on Sunday if he can visit. Didn't call today, not yet. Why? Several pages following only detail the experiment procedures in shorthand. These notes match the official logs and have been verified for accuracy by the assisting research staff. 27th. Nothing. That's what happened next. No results. If I did something to make E angry, he won't tell me. Saw him across the hall yesterday. Smiled and he smiled back, but he didn't cross over to talk to me and he hasn't called since. Once again, several pages of experiment procedure in shorthand, all pertaining to exposing D-class to contact with the object. In place of the results recorded in official logs, the author has repeatedly written nothing in all caps. After this, references to Dr. G's continued research are infrequent. June 6th. It isn't just E. Dad hasn't called in a month. No one's called in a month. I start to worry, then I hear from someone else that they're doing fine, so why don't they pick up when I call? The 6th. Presenting myself for psychological evaluation to be safe. I've stared at that damn wall long enough to memorize the pattern. Shrink recommended antidepressants. Feel like an ass. Note, it is unknown how Dr. G experienced the psychological consultation, which did in fact take place. Dr. Reese's report on their interactions verifies that he did recommend antidepressants, and that the subject seemed melancholy and withdrawn and fixated on the potential inconclusiveness of her research. Oh, there is a lady. Well, all I had to go off of was G. Having worked in this business for some time, I did not find anything abnormal about these expressions of anxiety. However, I did recommend that she remove herself from physical and visual proximity of the research subject. According to colleagues, Dr. G made no report of or attempt to follow the suggestion. I'm getting as bad as E when it comes to compulsions. Every night, I seem to find myself sitting on the bed back to the wall, like it'll collapse. Otherwise, I shouldn't joke about that, E. Sorry. Otherwise. No one says hello when we pass in the halls, and I can't bring myself to say it first. I'm not asking for attention, but they look right through me. At this point, coworkers report that Dr. G took a hiatus from research work. She makes no record of submitting this as an official request. They suspended my access to D-class subjects because of the lack of results. That must be what happened because no one showed up. No one would explain why. No one seems especially worried about it. Couldn't even find the shrink for my appointment. Guess he forgot. I can't really blame him. It's hard to notice every little thing. Sights and smells and noise in the background. Is the SCP make people into wallflowers? Is that what this is? If you're around it too much, then people just see you as the scenery, like you're not actually there, but they do recognize you? Note, neither of these statements correspond with other accounts. Dr. Reese was in his office as scheduled and alerted Dr. G's direct superiors when she missed the appointment. Dr. G's access to D-class subjects was never suspended, and there's no record of an inquiry on the subject. Didn't leave my room today. None of Dr. G's neighbors recall her going to or from her place of residence on this or any following day. I left my room today, walked around every floor, every hallway, no one written in pencil too faint to be legible. They looked right through me. Note, Dr. G has been officially declared a missing person as of 6/18. Contrary to her written account, the last recorded interaction with Dr. G was on 6/9. The reasons for her disappearance and its relationship to 1205 remains a subject of debate. Dr. Reese notes that Dr. G had no prior history of depression, and close acquaintances describe her as outgoing and articulate. The testimony of her redacted by request corroborates these accounts and highlighted numerous instances of the doctor's level-headedness under duress both before and during her employment by the Foundation. Addendum 7 something something. While performing air quality tests in the containment cell, a junior researcher claimed to witness the following. I just finished up, and I know it isn't a known issue, but I felt weird turning my back on it, so I backed out of the room, keeping an eye on it, and then I saw it move. It was like a little seam appeared in one corner, and a little scrap of it quivered, like someone was trying to tear it off. It pulled free and fluttered to the ground, but I must have blinked. When I looked again, it was gone. Addendum 2. An anonymous Foundation researcher notes that he/she has read both the incident report and Dr. G's original document several times and thoroughly. It is his/her opinion that sections of writing have since disappeared from the handwritten originals. This claim is disputed by other researchers. So yeah, it definitely sounds like it's called Wallflower, so it probably, I believe Wallflower can also be described as someone who is like fades into the background. Let me double check. Someone as a wallflower. Urban Dictionary. A wallflower is a person who is introverted and is separate from the crowd, usually at a party. Not particularly shy, but are reserved when surrounded by a lot of people and big personalities. Here's a Wikipedia one, which is the same thing. So yeah, it sounds like the SCP probably turns people into wallflowers to the point where they think they're being ignored by everyone, when in actuality everyone's like, no, everything's fine. We don't know what the hell she's talking about. But this is the part where I do the break in the video before I record the next chunk of it. So if there's a weird, like I said, if there's a weird disconnect between right now and in a few seconds, that's because different scenery around me. So, Lost Muse. Alright. What's it? Well, Lost Muse is safe. I guess it's not that lost. So, Foundation agents are to construct billboards advertising a Foundation-owned local restaurant chain in the event site of 1206 near the town of blank. In the event site. I was thinking in the event of, sorry. Testing with subjects previously exposed to 1206 has revealed that 1206 cannot generate its effect if the view of the event site is impeded in any way. Description. SCP-1206 is a serendipitous phenomenon that is the convergence of three factors: the degree of sky visibility over the event site, if at the time the Green Line Track D outbound from Boston, Massachusetts passes said site coincides with dusk or twilight, and whether or not passengers happen to be gazing at the scenery on the northern right side of the train. Statistically, 1206 has shown a preference for the times of 1730 Eastern Standard Time to 1930 Eastern Standard Time, as summer dust tends to produce more picturesque settings, as well as a degree of cloudiness that produces an aesthetically pleasing skyscape over the event site. Between stops redacted, the Green Line train passes through an open 0.4 kilometer long expanse of trees and shrubbery bordering the eastern boundaries of blank that classify as the hot zone. If the aforementioned conditions are met, passengers become intensely transfixed by the scenery for the entirety of the trip through the hot zone. Subjects have reported an overwhelming feeling of awe and the sublime, but have summarily failed to provide adequate descriptions of what they have seen. Researchers have speculated that subjects have been unable to describe 1206 because it appeals to latent forms in the human mind that cannot be accurately defined by formalized language. As exposed subjects feel a compulsion to communicate their experience of the hot zone, individuals will invariably develop a language hereby referred to as 1206A that will replace and eventually become the subject's preferred method of communication. A has developed concurrently even in isolated subjects. A apparently functions as a language of the subconscious, utilizing rudimentary language constructs intrinsic to the human brain that can communicate the emotional state and status of its speaker and listener flawlessly. It is to be expected that more than 75% of subject groups will eventually fracture, as it is impossible to lie or be subtle when speaking A. Written words bear a resemblance to redacted, suggesting A is far older than the Foundation initially believed. Rough translations are possible, but the emotional sensations skilled speakers are able to convey far outweigh ordinary language constructs in lucidity of meaning, ease of use, and informational density. Non-speakers of A are still able to intuitively glean fragments of meaning from spoken instances, however complex. Only exposure to 1206 is proven to trigger A. Should A become the de facto language of a nation or the world, its revelatory and reverent nature would cause total societal restructuring, if not outright collapse. See notes by Dr. Blank for summary of findings. But first we gotta see that there addendum. Alright, Addendum 1. Same thing. Aegis monitoring travel boards were alerted to a possible second instance of 1206 when Norwegian forum user blank blank read a lengthy post in A detailing his marital troubles following his discovery and adoption of A. Subjects were made to translate the statement into English. Transcript of relevant segment is as follows. On, I guess, August the 4th. My family and I were walking across a bridge, and in Redacted. An unassuming thing, not much to look at. The thing is, though, that, the thing is, though, is that it afforded us the most beautiful view of the sunset a few weeks ago. I struggle to describe it even now. It felt old, primal, shining out from out of time past. Like if I had a child's eyes and everything sang with novelty. My daughter began speaking gibberish the day after. She was the first. I started the following Friday. Words poured out of me, blank, blank, and blank. The wife was next. Let's see. Only recorded derivation of the word used to refer to 1206. For many days, we reveled in the power of it in capturing the flight of a bird or the growl of the car engine in a word, but it was exhausting. You could not lie in this language. Case in point, my wife left me the following month. I noticed her word for me made her uncomfortable. It dug up something in her, all the bad qualities about me she had never liked but had buried under the habits and routines of marriage. My stubbornness, my insistence on having a son, how I came home one Friday night reeking of perfume, all in a word. I visited that bridge every dusk for the past 2 weeks. Sometimes it is ordinary, sometimes it glows with an old fire. I know there are more places like that bridge. I can feel them. The last vestige of the beauty that gave us God and the courts of spirits, nerve ends shuddering awake with life. Our society has no words for them, and you can't sing of them because they're where songs come from. I think when humanity was young, we must have been like children, unnaturally wise in all the subtle things of the earth. We spoke the names of majesty, everything called themselves. Now that is all gone, but it is still there to discover. It huddles in the blind spots of our modernity, in the blankness of maps. If we can only see it, only feel it atop our rationalist perches, our aviaries angular with number and category swaying in the winds of death, melt into the blood of love. Find me! The bridge is in Redacted. It is apprehended blank blank for questioning. Study into the bridge as another hot zone for 1206 phenomena is ongoing. Summary of findings by Dr. Blank. Even the student linguist will see that there is something wholly unique about SCP-1206-A. For one, A has words for the exact appearance or impression of an object/person. For example, speakers of A would go beyond describing the parts or attributes of a person's face, but actually call every face a unique word. A does not rely on its listener forming an incomplete picture from a description of compositional parts, but has a near-infinite base of words used to encapsulate and describe a wide variety of objects, including faces, bodies, the character of a person, the appearance of the sky on any given day, the weather, how a particular conversation made the speaker feel, or even amount of dirt. Many of these words might be similar, derived from each other, or different syllabic emphasis to signify related categories of appearance, personality, feeling, abstract concepts, etc. For example, after a particularly grueling session recording over blank thousand words with D17368, the subject described the interview as leaving him feeling blank, a heteronym of blank, and roughly analogous to drained, but with added emphasis on the blank syllable to signify the nature of what caused the subject's fatigue as intensely bureaucratic and procedural. The name for the hot zone is blank and is the only word that does not share similarities with any other. As is the nature of A's flexible nomenclature, subjects will often create words on the spot. There are no rules regarding the formation of words. Once a functional set of A words has been entered, the speaker's lexicon after hot zone exposure, subjects only report needing to meditate momentarily on the object of their description before inventing a word that fits like a glove. Other speakers will immediately accept the word as the name for that object. Studies with isolated subjects asked to describe the upturned contents of the break room trash receptacle has yielded the same word, blank, suggesting a universality in the method of word invention that is intrinsic to the brain's psychological makeup. Studies are ongoing. Alrighty then. Doesn't really sound like they lost the muse. Unless it's just somebody's lost muse infecting everyone. Next up is not a mirror. Is it though? It's safe? but it also has some crossed out in it, so it can't be that safe. SCP-1207 is to be wrapped in opaque cloth and contained within a standard inanimate objects locker. In accordance with standard protocol for direct exposure, line of sight, cognitohazards, 1207 is to be kept under constant real-time video surveillance whenever it is removed from its locker for any purpose, maintenance, analysis, experimentation, etc. Direct exposure to 1207 is to be minimized. Maximum cumulative direct exposure for individual personnel is not to exceed 2 hours within a 30-day period or 24 hours within an individual lifetime. Personnel whose cumulative direct exposure to 1207 exceeds 2 hours within a 30-day period are to be immediately placed with psychological leave until such a time as they have been judged free of the symptoms of body dysmorphic disorder, and are not to resume active duty until they have successfully undergone retraining and data entry and proofreading. Used to say, description. SCP-1207 is a, well, mirror is misspelled for one, approximately 1 meter by 1/2 meter in size, and a white wooden frame painted with pink and red hearts. Using the kin-scale method of mirror-type object evaluation, Foundation scientists have established it as a minor-level psychological threat. Now it says, SCP-1207 is a metal sign approximately 50 centimeters by 60 centimeters in size, painted white, with embossed letters reading, "This is a mirror, you are a typo, sick." It is a direct exposure cognitohazard which manifests 3 distinct anomalous effects upon subjects within line of sight. The first effect, which is the most obvious, is that any sighted person, mammal, vertebrate directly exposed to 1207 will perceive it as being a mirror, even if they are aware of its true nature. Test subjects not capable of mirror recognition will perform territorial threat displays against 1207. Human subjects uniformly describe the mirror as being contained within a white wooden frame with pink and red hearts. However, more detailed descriptions vary from subject to subject. Blindfolded subjects report that SCP-1207 feels smooth and glassy, with wood around the edges. Conversely, blind subjects report that 1207 feels metallic and bumpy. Okay, so the reason the first thing is crossed off is because that's not what it is. Got it. It is to be emphasized that, despite the perceptions and reactions of affected subjects, 1207 does not actually function as a mirror. The second anomalous effect is that subjects exposed to it will rapidly develop symptoms of body dysmorphic disorder as they examine their reflections. Human subjects will voice a variety of complaints about their physical appearance, ranging from, "I'm the wrong height," to, "My tattoo is crooked," and always ending with, "I'm not cool yet." Oh, is this by those people? Non-human subjects capable of mirror recognition will perform compulsive grooming. As cumulative exposure to 1207 increases, subjects will begin to modify their appearance in attempts to correct themselves, typically by application of cosmetics. Subjects without access to cosmetics will engage in self-mutilation. Such subjects, when shown actual mirrors, will express satisfaction with their modifications. However, when re-exposed to 1207, subjects will again find fault with their appearance. The third anomalous effect is that the subjects exposed to 1207 will gradually develop symptoms of dyslexia, losing their ability to spell and to notice spelling errors. This effect is limited to subjects familiar with the English language, and always begins with a subject consistently misspelling the word mirror as mirror. The induced dyslexia is temporary, however the factors determining the rate at which individual subjects recover have not yet been determined. SCP-1207 was discovered in an abandoned storage unit facility in Redacted, which had been in use as a workspace by members of the group of interest currently identified as Are We Cool Yet? It is theorized that 1207 was to form the basis of an unfinished installation. Notes left by the artist indicate that the completed installation was a rumination on the essence of how the ways we see ourselves shape what we are. It looks like this was a rewrite. I wonder what it used to be. It was last edited on July the 28th of this year, so I wonder what it used to be. Lawful Master 3000. If that's not from Dr. Wondertainment, that's bummer. So, it's safe. SCP-1208 is to be kept in secure item storage at Site-19. Researchers wishing to perform experiments with it using human or animal subjects must present a detailed test plan to the lead researcher for approval. What? I hope you mean human or animal subjects to eat the waffles, and not to be the waffles. SCP-1208 is a Belgian waffle iron, identical in every outward respect to a unit produced by the Conair Corporation in 2003, except that its power cable is fitted with an NEMA 1430 connector rather than the grounded 520 connector provided with that model. Conair makes waffle irons? Huh. When connected to a compatible 240-volt receptacle, the PTFE-coated cast iron cooking surface rapidly warms to a surface temperature of 215 degrees Celsius, at which point the green indicator light on the front of the device illuminates. At this point, 1208 may be used to prepare waffles using any standard batter without anomalous effect. That's higher I'm pretty sure that's higher than the boiling point of water. Does it really need to be that hot to make waffles? The anomalous behavior of 1208 occurs when it has reached operating temperature and any solid material other than a batter or dough is placed between the two heating plates and the lid is closed. Regardless of the material so placed, applying torque of approximately 1.3 newtons, I guess that's Newton meters, to the handle of the device will successfully close the lid, displacing any material in excess of the volume of the cooking area, approximately 1400 cc's, to the outer edge of the device. At this point, the red indicator lamp on the front of the device will illuminate, and the device will not open until 3 minutes have elapsed. Forces of up to 10 to the 6 newtons have proved insufficient to open the lid during this phase. Copious amounts of steam are emitted from between the two plates during this process. After 3 minutes, the red indicator light will darken, and the lid may be opened with minimal effort. Both cooking plates will be cool to the touch, approximately 15 degrees Celsius, and a waffle composed of the matter placed between the plates will be present. Deformation caused by this process is entirely topological. Any substructures present in the source material remain intact but deformed. Incomplete sections of plant or animal tissue will remain alive for a short period of time, normally succumbing to the necrosis due to lack of fluid circulation within 60 minutes. Animals small enough to fit completely within the volume of the cooking area may survive slightly longer, though feeding and respiratory difficulties due to their new body plan typically prove fatal in 1 to 3 days. Okay, so it's just a waffle iron that can make waffles out of anything, which I guess technically any waffle iron can do that. Just don't. Many eyes in many places is Euclid. I would think something like that would, a title like that, you'd think it'd be Keter. SCP-1209-1 instances are to be contained in standard humanoid containment cells at Site Blank. They are to be fed meals 3 times a day. 1 instances are to be allowed to submit requests for entertainment or comfort materials which do not compromise security within reason, as a reward for good behavior. Socialization with the Science Foundation staff is allowed and encouraged in order to improve psychological well-being, but instances are not allowed to come into contact with each other. SCP-1209-1 instances are to be questioned at regular intervals by Foundation staff, and their responses are to be recorded in order to document any noteworthy events observed and further understanding of 1209. These interviews are to be conducted twice daily, at approximately 8 o'clock in the morning and again at 1900 hours, as well as any time at which one instance requests an interview. 1 instances which have observed potentially traumatizing events are to be monitored by an assigned psychiatrist, but may not be administered amnestics. It is considered vital that 1 instances retain their memory of transmitted images in case this knowledge becomes pertinent at a later date. 2 instances are largely passive and do not present anomalous behavior aside from connection to 1209. As such, no containment procedures are required to directly deal with 2 instances aside from monitoring. However, efforts should be made to identify all of them. Should any 1 instance observe an event which is considered pertinent to the Foundation's mission, the site administrator of Site Blank is to be notified immediately in order to discuss responses. Description: SCP-1209 is a congenital defect of the eye found in several individuals from the region of Data Expunged, and it believed to be caused by an environmental factor. As a result of the deformity, the eye's internal structure is drastically altered, although the most noticeable feature of the condition is the presence of multiple irises, pupils, lenses, and associated anatomical features on the surface of the eye. Ugh. I'm glad there's no pictures. Number of lenses per sclera is typically between 2 and 4. This condition is usually accompanied by complete heterochromia, in where each iris is differently colored. As a result of the presence of multiple corneas and a distortion of the sclera, sufferers report mild to severe discomfort when attempting to move their eyes, and some have only limited range of movement in one or both eyes. In many cases, deformities in the internal structure of the eye render one or more of these lenses partially or totally blind. An in-depth analysis of the abnormal optical structures of 1209 subjects can be found in attached document Alpha. Individuals affected by 1209, henceforth referred to as 1, appear to be able to see normally through only one of the pupils, usually the one aligned closest to where the pupil would normally be located. All other pupils display a view of the world consistent with that seen through the eyes of other individuals henceforth referred to as 2. Each pupil displays images as seen by a single separate person, and the persons that each pupil is able to see through appear constant at all times. Each one instance is connected to multiple instances of 2, as many as there are additional pupils. These connections allow one to experience visual stimuli only, and appear to only transmit through the left eye of 2 instances. One cannot perceive 2's experiences when they close their eyes, or when their eye is damaged beyond the point at which 2 can see through them. Should 2 die, transmission of images will continue until the internal structure of the eye deteriorates to a significant degree of decomposition. If 2 is permanently blinded, or if the 1's additional pupils are damaged significantly, transmission of images will cease. However, defects in the additional pupils do not prevent transmission, only injury and trauma prevents transmission. 1 will continue to perceive the experience of 2 while dreaming, although reported transmission is less complete than while awake. There appears to be a distinct correlation between 1 and 2 in that all 2 instances were born within approximately 2 hours of the relevant 1 instance's birth. SCP-1209 was discovered following routine scanning of medical files at Blank Hospital. Subsequent investigation led to the discovery of Blank 1 instances born in the nearby area, centered on the town of Blank, and more specifically, the main water supply of the town. Investigation revealed the possibility that an unknown chemical has been introduced to the water supply repeatedly over the course of Blank years by an unknown party posing as maintenance workers in order to access the water supply network. Although this event is believed to have had some connection to the outbreak of 1209 due to a correlation between periods of maintenance work and conceptions resulting in 1 instances, it is believed it is presently impossible to determine whether the 2 instances are related. All remainders of the compound believed to have been introduced into the supply had degraded into other chemicals before testing could be performed. No experimentation has been able to determine the exact cause of 1209. Addendum 1, List of Noteworthy 2 Subjects. A full list of 2 subjects can be found in Document Beta. Blank Blank, Aide to Blank Blank, Secretary of State of Blank. Linked to 1209 1-3. Considered noteworthy due to the considerable intelligence breach 2's existence represents. As a result of Foundation intervention, Mr. Blank has since been removed from any position of political power. Blank Blank, a noted criminal operating as a part of the Central African militant group Redacted. Linked to 1-2. Killed in combat action Blankety Blank Blank. Due to the graphic and distressing nature of transmissions from Mr. Blank, 2 has been placed under psychiatric observation and remains so despite Mr. Blank's death and the cessation of transmissions. Blankety Blank, an Australian journalist working for Blank Blank newspaper. Linked to 1-1. Killed during an investigation involving material sensitive to Foundation interest, during which she witnessed the outbreak of the cognitohazard later classified as SCP something, though 1 was not affected. Remains to date the only use of SCP-1209 in order to assist Foundation efforts, as questioning 1-1 was vital to providing intelligence allowing for the capture of the instance of SCP blank. Unknown individual linked to 1-3. Shortly after 3 came into Foundation custody, this instance of 2 is believed to have blinded himself in order to avoid detection. Prior to loss of transmission, the individual wrote down the message, "I don't care for prying eyes, leave me alone," apparently with the intention of transmitting the message to SCP-1-3. It is unknown how or to what extent the individual was aware of his connection to 1209. Unknown individual linked to 4. Careful analysis of data received from 4 indicates that no such individual was present or could have been present at some of the events described by 4. However, all descriptions of events relayed through 4 have proven to be accurate save for the appearance of the observing figure. Several events observed by this individual are extremely important or sensitive, although no transmission has been reported since blank blank blank. Alright, next up is Anomalous Radar Station, which is also Euclid. Okay. A Foundation laboratory ship as well as 2 patrol ships are stationed in the region surrounding 1210 at a range of no less than 10 kilometers. As 2 remains active, expeditions to or experimentation with 1210 for more than 5 hours after a recorded emission event may only be performed with prior permission from at least 2 level 4 personnel. Infrared and visible light photography by the next overpassing surveillance satellite must be scheduled immediately after a recorded emission event. The area surrounding 1210 in a radius of 15 kilometers is marked as off-limits on all official maps, and radar overwatch is to be maintained using unmanned aerial vehicles, UAVs. Civilians attempting to approach 1210 must be detained and questioned. Description: SCP-1210-1 is an uncharted islet approximately 31 kilometers off the coast of Redacted, Russia, with an area of 3.4 kilometers squared. Right, squared. Its unusual shape suggests that it may once have been larger, but that the eastern half of the island was sheared off via unknown means, leaving a sharp delineation, at which point several buildings and roads as well as utility lines have been cut off. 2 is a World War II era radar installation located on the main hill of 1, consisting of a large radar array and a control bunker containing its readout equipment. Cyrillic signage indicate that the site is named Redacted, but no official documentation of the site exists in any Russian or Soviet-era records. The site is in an advanced state of disrepair consistent with multiple decades of abandonment, though several rooms are remarkably well preserved due to having been inside sealed bunkers. Forensic examination of the site indicates that the site personnel were forced to abandon the area in haste and head towards the eastern end of the island, where the main power plant and living quarters are presumed to have been located. Despite having been disconnected from an active power source for at least 50 years, 2 is still active and periodically generates a low-powered anomalous radar pulse emission that radiates out to a range of approximately 9 kilometers. The period and frequency of these emissions is unstable, but are usually at or about blank millisecond ms and blank to blank hertz. These emissions are also irregular and have been recorded repeating as often as once every 6 hours, and as rarely as once every 7 days. During each emission event, localized shifts in the area surrounding 2 occur that coincide with the propagation of the emission signal. These include, but are not limited to, changes in the topography of the seabed and ocean floor, changes in the local plant and animal life, as well as short-lived changes in the chemistry and organic content of the water surrounding 1210. Prior to current containment procedures, individuals within the red zone of 1210 during an emission event reported being able to feel a ripple pass through their bodies, resulting in short-term nausea, as well as tingling in the extremities that persisted for several days. In rare cases, subjects have also reported short-term memory loss and fatigue, and in 2 cases, personnel were discovered missing and were unable to be located. Incident Log 1. On blank blank blank, an emission event occurred while 2 research personnel were in open water on a small powerboat. Foundation patrol ship SCP Treska received a panic distress signal that was shortly cut off. Upon investigation, the Treska discovered the shredded hull of the powerboat, with puncture damage consistent with the teeth of a sea megalodon. Additional Foundation assets are being considered to deal with the possibility of extinct or otherwise anomalous wildlife as a result of 1210's emission events. Well, dang. Okay, so next up would be King in the Castle. Well, the King in the Castle is also Euclid. Special Containment Procedures. A perimeter of 50 meters is to be maintained around 1211 at all times. Any civilians approaching this perimeter are to be redirected away from the site with fabricated reports of danger in and around the structure. No male personnel over the age of 35 are allowed to enter the premises under any circumstances. Description. SCP-1211 is the dilapidated ruin of a castle 10 kilometers outside the city of somewhere in Ireland. Only the first floor and basement of the structure remain in functional condition. The upper 3 floors have eroded and collapsed at indeterminate points in the castle's past. Initially, it was thought that any person entering 1211 would be subject to its effect, though testing has proven that only males aged 35 and older are affected. The reason for this is thought to be related to the terms of eligibility for kingship in Ireland at the time of the castle's construction. Within minutes of entering 1211, any male of at least 35 years old, see testing log for correlation between the effect of 1211 and Irish descent, will be immediately convinced that he is the rightful heir to an imagined throne, owner of the castle, and lord of all lands as far as the eye can see. Note that subject in all cases have used exactly these words, refusing to leave the premises, even under threat of lethal force. The cause of these solutions is unclear, though the effect appears to be much more pronounced in individuals of Irish descent. Subjects of exclusively Irish lineage may even attempt to subjugate any personnel in their vicinity. These attempts have occasionally resulted in fatalities and should be treated as serious assaults on Foundation staff. If left on site for extended periods, affected subjects will begin to live more and more in a fantasy where they are a king during a time of war, pacing the interior hallways of 1211 and whispering to themselves in the Irish language, even in cases where the subject did not know Irish before they came in here. Translations of such speech have proven it to be mostly threats of violence against imagined rival clans, and imagined scenarios of what the subject would do should any man challenge his right to be king. If left on site for long enough, subjects will begin to age rapidly. After 3 weeks of exposure to the castle's effect, a man of 35 years of age will have visibly aged to approximately 80 years. Physical deterioration is difficult to measure after this point, as it continues to accelerate at a different rate for each subject. After 1 month, some subjects are observed to experience rotting of the skin, muscle tissue, and general deterioration of the skeletal structure. Others can take multiple months to reach this point. At no time has any subject expressed need of food, water, or sleep during this process, and no subject has ever died of old age while affected by 1211. A subject that has deteriorated to such an extent that he can no longer pace the halls of 1211 will invariably make for its basement and collapse there, still alive, at which point the walls will begin to build themselves around the subject. Any murmuring observed after this point will consist of only the Irish word for happy again and again. All subjects cease to vocalize at all soon after this event. Addendum 1. Dr. Davidson's research team has noted a 10% increase in surface area in the remaining portion of the second floor. Weekly measurements are to be taken as testing continues on 1211, and any further changes are to be reported immediately. Testing log. So this is the one test. Subject, disposable dude, 1355, 36 years of age, native to blank Ireland. Subject is equipped with a handheld transceiver and a camera with a live feed to the research team's base of operations. Subject is instructed to enter and explore the ruins. I don't think I should try to do an Irish accent because I don't want to piss off anybody. Audiovisual log. View is of a long, dark hallway. Few details are discernible. Fuck, it's creepy in here. We're not getting as much as we should be on the video feed. Try to focus the lens. Subject can be heard fiddling with the buttons on the camera. Is that better? We're making note of the unusual darkness. Continue on. A large hall becomes visible. Much of the ceiling is missing, yet the video feed remains too dark to discern much detail. D1355, what do you see? We're still not getting much on the feed. It's so beautiful, or it used to be at least. What is it? Report what you see immediately. Subject does not reply slightly for slightly over a minute. Murmuring. Speak up, son. What do you see in there? It's mine. What? What's yours? It's all mine. They'll never get it. You aren't making any sense. Explain yourself at once or we'll terminate you and get somebody else. 1355 remains unresponsive, muttering to himself. The camera is abruptly dropped. The camera continues to record for 3 subsequent hours, during which time 1355 slowly wanders in and out of the hall. At the 2-hour mark, a scream is heard from outside the hall in a language that none of the researchers speak. The last hour of footage is similar to the first 2 hours. Research note. 1211 seems to somehow alter the mindset of those who enter it. I'm guessing permission to experiment. I'm requesting permission to experiment further. I can't words! Okay, next up is irresponsible competition. 1212. How irresponsible is it if it's safe? Whatever. SCP-1212 is kept in a 5x5x3 meter containment cell at site somewhere. Experimentation may only be performed with prior permission from at least 2 level 3 personnel, and the room is to be cleared of any residual body fluids or other detritus immediately after testing. Any instances of 1212 discovered within 3311 are to be immediately moved to Site Blank for long-term storage. Alright. I keep stopping because I went to my basement to do laundry, and it felt like I was walking through spider webs, but I don't think I was, but now it feels like there's stuff on me, and I'm freaking out. Sorry. SCP-1212, while not in use, is a simple wooden bar stool with a height of 74 centimeters and seat dimensions of 38 by 38 centimeters. It does not possess any abnormal physical qualities other than a faint odor of alcohol, and there are no maker's marks or any other identifying features present. When any living, mentally sound human being older than 15 years of age sits on 1212, 2 occurrences of abnormal activity can be immediately observed. 1212, while leaving the occupant unaffected, changes shape almost instantaneously. Blank, separate iterations have been observed. It looks like there's at least 100, with none repeating, including a shiny metallic bar stool with bright red plastic seats, a rude wooden stool which appeared to have been painted very poorly with black paint, a smooth sandstone chair with elegantly carved with unfamiliar square symbols which as of yet have been unable to be conclusively identified, and a low square stool engraved with cloud motifs, believed to resemble those manufactured in the late Chinese Qing dynasty. Xing? I don't know how to pronounce it. The occupant appears to experience a full sensory hallucination and is no longer able to sense what is occurring around them in reality, while being completely unable to be removed from 1212. even using extreme methods. See Addendum A. Is Addendum A in here? It is. The occupant of 1212 is then heard speaking to someone, but all attempts to record the other half of the conversation have so far failed. Usually it becomes apparent that the occupant, hereafter referred to as the contestant, has been invited to participate in a drinking contest, and the contest begins regardless of acceptance or refusal of the invitation. All surviving subjects agree that the invitation includes two phrases similar in content to, "You must drink with me in memory of those who sat where you sit and lack the strength to understand their limits," and "We must curse those who were weak and honor those who were strong." Sometimes, the contestant is spoken to in a language that they do not understand, attempts made to bridge the communication barrier fail, and events proceed as normal. The contestant then, willingly or forcibly, appears to mime the following actions in sequence: taking a container of liquid from a surface in front of them, placing it to their lips, drinking its contents in one smooth motion, and then slamming the container back down onto the surface. There is always a period of 30 to 50 seconds between each sequence, presumably as the contestant waits his or her turn. The contestant is always capable of speech, but is always interrupted by the drinking action. No interference of any kind appears to be possible. Despite no actual liquid passing the contestant's lips, they slowly begin to exhibit effects normally associated with alcohol intoxication, and as each sequence continues, the effects of intoxication become more and more severe. Nausea, slurring of speech, and drooping of the eyelids and other facial features are usually the first in evidence, followed by bodily swaying, choking, and vomiting. None of the mentioned effects appear to prevent the contestant from participating further. Some contestants have even appeared to cease vomiting for the exact amount of time it takes to take another drink, before resuming said oral expulsion of liquids. Subsequent testing of these liquids in the bloodstream of the contestants revealed no alcoholic substances were ever present. The drinking continues even after the contestant is seen to visibly suffer the effects of severe alcohol poisoning, usually typified by unconsciousness, limpness of body, and occasional shuddering. Posture is still maintained with no interruption to the miming actions. The contest will only end when one of the two conditions are met. A period of time elapses that is no less than 1 hour in length, with an average time of 1 drink per minute. Of the hundreds of something amount of tests undertaken by the Foundation, only blank contestants survived long enough to reach this point, and 95% of that group were unconscious. See document B12. 1212 then reverts to its normal shape and will no longer react to the presence of the contestant. Alcohol poisoning causes all bodily function to shut down, resulting in death. Upon cessation of heartbeat, the contestant is released from 1212 and falls to the floor. 1212 then returns to its normal, dormant shape and size. Okay, interruption. It has been proven physically impossible to interrupt the contest once it has begun. This includes outside termination of the contestant by any means. Any wounds sustained that are not part of 1212's effect are simply ignored, fatal or otherwise. Notably, in the case of test 1212-0-something, the contestant appeared to continue miming the actions of drinking with both arms severed neatly just below the shoulder. The cut was visible, but there was no evidence of bleeding, pain, or lack of function. When the contest ended and the contestant released from its effect, both appendages immediately fell off, causing extreme pain and cardiac arrest resulting in death. Okay, test 12-12-0-1. Test subject, D392010, male, Caucasian, 21 years. Test supervisors, Dr. Blank and Dr. T and Dr. S. Date something 2000 something. Sit down on the stool, D-class, and then describe what you see. You won't be able to hear us, but we will certainly hear you. Slowly sits down on the stool. Almost immediately, the stool lowers by nearly half a meter and transforms into a stool made of shiny metal and plastic. Becomes visibly shaken. What the? Is this supposed to happen? I'm in some sort of dive bar. I don't know, some guy across from me is looking at me funny, and there's a crowd here. I don't... He used to survey his surroundings, mouth agape, and then tilts his head as if listening to someone. You wanna what? Drink me under the table? You wish, buddy. Breaks into a huge grin and laughs. This is gonna be a hell of a test, I can tell. You're on! Redacted. Dr. T. 10 minutes in, looks like he's holding up well, but he can barely speak. I don't think he's realized yet. Swaying back and forth, grinning maniacally while consuming each invisible drink. Whoa, buddy! You just don't stop, do you? You think we could take a break of a few minutes or something? No. The hell are you, pal? Stop when I wanna... Hey... Begins to struggle, but his arm appears to move by its own accord, forcing him to take another drink. The fuck is happening to me? The fuck is this? I don't... Somebody please stop. I don't want to keep going. You won, buddy. What the fuck do you mean the contest is underway? Hey, Doc! Get me out of here! This is just a freaky illusion or something, right? Get me... Chokes but keeps drinking. Ugh, this shit is foul! Continues threatening Foundation personnel and attempts resisting the test, but cannot stop drinking. He begins gibbering irrationally, filling his head side to side, back and forth when not compelled to take another shot. After several minutes, he begins vomiting in a light brown mixture of lumpy liquid. You gotta make it stop! You win! You win! Pauses to take a drink, then resumes vomiting. Redacted. Unconscious and jerking back and forth involuntarily. His jumpsuit pants are soaked from the waist down. The floor under the stool now covered with various substances. He continues to mime drinking. Redacted. An unconscious, visibly reddened 392-10 feebly jerks back and forth several times before pausing in the act of mid-drink. Slowly, he keels over and falls off the stool, landing in a now large puddle of bodily fluid. Time of expiration, 52 minutes, 47 seconds. Switches once more before ceasing to move altogether. While 12 reverts to his normal state, no traces of fluid on his wooden surface are evident. Well, dang. Orphaned catapult. I thought that... I misread that as orphan catapult. Like, load up the orphans, launch! Ah! I misread it. Unless that's exactly what it is. SCP-1213. It's safe. Quote-unquote safe. SCP-1213 is to be strapped immobile in a locked shipping container stored in Sector 25. It is not allowed to be within 20 meters of juvenile mammals weighing between 15 and 50 kilograms except for testing purposes. Description: 1213 is a wooden and steel catapult, medieval in design, 1.4 meters wide and 2.6 meters long. It is capable of autonomous locomotion on its 4 wooden wheels and of operating its firing mechanism by an unknown method. Aside from its anomalous movement and operation, it has no unusual physical properties. Given space to move, 1213 will haphazardly explore an area. Should it encounter a suitable subject, it will transport the subject into the basket of its firing arm by unknown means. 1213 must be within 10 meters of its subject in order to transport it. It will then launch the subject at the nearest flat vertical surface. After launching it will remain stationary, emitting a sound similar to a contented purring produced by felines while it resets its firing arm. 1213 will then resume its haphazard exploration. The firing arm can be strapped down, but any strapping will break should 1213 launch the subject. It favors infant to prepubescent mammalian subjects that weigh between 15 and 50 kilograms. It has also been known to launch subjects with dwarfism on occasion. It does just launch orphans! I've read it wrong, but I still got it right. It totally just launches orphans. That's great. Well, it's not great, but... you know. SCP-1213 was found in blank, a farming town in England, after several unexplainable cases of dead children and small animals that were reported as having been hurled into walls at high velocity. A search of the town found 1213 in the bushes of a school playground. Further investigation of the town led to the discovery of an improvised laboratory in an abandoned farmhouse. Much of the laboratory was destroyed by an explosion, presumably caused by the large defunct device that was the focus of the laboratory. The device was the experimental work of Dr. Blank, who cannot be located. Dr. Blank's damaged research log was discovered in pieces among the debris of the warehouse, and only excerpts could be retrieved. Here are said excerpts. Pieces of text are missing, burnt or otherwise illegible, marked with ... I've done it! I've finished! I've pressed the button, I've flipped the switch, I've changed the world forever! Even as I sit here, it opens. The noise is unbearable, I can see objects moving beyond any dimension. Every dimension, I can see what... if only I could interact, access, perhaps This particularly is fascinating to me, impossible, but I can't deny. There are families of them, unbelievable, all different types. What would we believe to inanimate different species? The tire iron seemed particularly amiable. Somehow, whatever I did, it worked. But it's here now, and I think it's separated from its parents. I've grown fond of it. It has no family of my... so long, alone working. It's abandonment here. I've grown an animosity. I can't keep it. I can't. I've reduced massive... Town is safe, but I can't find Hurley and found Robert like a tomato. Oh my god. So it sounds like this guy accidentally opened another dimension where normal objects were alive and he accidentally ripped this catapult away from its family? And it yeets children because it misses its family? I guess? Okay, next up is Anomalous Random Number Generator. Which is safe? Sure it is. The laptop computer containing 1214, designated 1214 Li, well, L1, and all its peripherals are to be kept in a standard laptop case in a secure locker in the Computer Science Department of Site-33. No testing is to be performed on 1214 without the authorization of Senior CSD Administrator Dr. G. Wilson. How come there's not a period after doctor? Anyway. As per standard anomalous computer equipment regulation 4324-B, 1214 L1 must under no circumstances be connected to a network of any kind. Fair enough. 1214 L1 is a standard Dell XPS Ultrabook laptop computer including power supply and mouse. Software installed includes the Microsoft Windows 7 operating system and Visual Studio 2012. Several coding projects can be found in the Documents folder of user blank. Most of these are programming exercises in the C# programming language. 1214 is a project, also written in C#. I don't know what that means, I'm not a programmer, with the name Random Number Test. The program consists of approximately 60 lines of code. The program generates random numbers in the range of 48 to 90, which are then interpreted as ACSI character codes. Or ACSI. This gives the possibility of generating the numbers in Table 1 below. Table 1 possible numbers generated by the algorithm. 0 to 9, A to Z, colon, semicolon, less than, equals, greater than, question mark, and @. The characters are assembled into lines of 50 characters each. One such line is printed to a text window every second while the program is running. Sample of program output time lasts 1 minute. Okay. Let me shrink that back down. The anomalous properties of 1214 can be hard to detect at first. However, running the program output through a stochastic analyzer will show that while the output begins by following the expected pseudo-random distribution used by modern computers, this will gradually change the longer the program is allowed to run. Eventually, patterns with an unexpectedly low probability will begin to emerge. Sample of output time elapsed blank minutes. In this example, a clear bias towards the character A can be observed, not consistent with the expected random distribution that 1214's algorithm should generate. Maybe it's screaming. Approximately blank hours, blank minutes after the program start, what appears to be a semi-coherent sentences start appearing in the output. This point in time is designated T. Periods before and after T are designated phase 1 and 2, respectively. Sample of program output, elapsed time. Let's see, so we got... Okay, it looks like it's saying please make it stop. But there's also the word, probably make it stop, no more. So examples of words found in output during phase 2 underlining added, identify words, make it stop, stop, make it stop, please, no more, please, no more. Alright. At blank, give or take 3 hours at the start of phase 2, the frequency of identifiable words starts to drop. At the same time, bias towards long strings of the same character starts to slowly increase. Additionally, the number of different characters in the output begins to diminish as if the probability of them appearing has dramatically decreased. This is designated phase 3. Z-E swoo. Example of output during phase 3 test run 14. Probability for characters A, F, L, O, Y dropped to 0 or near 0. They do not appear in the output again during test TR14. Phase 3 continues as described with no further variances. The longest tested date has been 27, where it was run for blank days and showed a blank % reduction in the character set during phase 3. Stopping and starting the program results in a repetition of phases 1 through 3, with slight variations in program output as well as the lengths of the respective phases. The current theory is that the diminishing probabilities observed during phase 3 will continue until only one character remains in the output. Calculations show that such a result would require the program to run for somewhere between blank 100 and blank 100 days. Additional, after the occurrence described in Addendum 3, SCSDA G. Wilson ordered testing of 1214 to be suspended till further notice. Okay, well, we've got the addendum. Addendum 1. Standard electronic containment tests have proved negative. It does not appear to be able to infect other computers, and copies of the program will not exhibit anomalous properties. Addendum 2. Acquisition log. 1214 L1 was retrieved by Agent Blank from the campus of Somewhere University, after a persistent rumor had circulated among the students that there existed an experimental program that behaved funny if executed over a period of several days. The rumors were exaggerated and ranged from speculations about rogue government AIs to impossible patterns seen in the game of life. Fortunately, the owner of 1214-1 appears to have shunned the attention this was generating, and exposure was therefore kept to a minimum. After acquiring the item, Agent Blank deployed a Class 4 worm in the University network to monitor data traffic for further indications of 1214 or similar activity. So far, none have been detected. Alright, so what was the incident? Test Run 28 was started with the goal of letting 1214 run for double the length of Test 27. Standard video capture OCR scanner setup used to record 1214 output. Personnel assigned to 1214 TR-28 was lead researcher Dr. H and research assistant Dr. P. Phase 1 completed according to expectations. However, at blank 100 minutes into Phase 2, the following words, quite different from the Phase 2 data acquired up to this point, appeared in 1214's output. It looks like, Hertz, please stop. Signal trace complete. We respond in kind. Please, please, please. Approximately 5 seconds after this point in time, Dr. H appeared to be caught by a seizure lasting for 13 seconds. She then fell unconscious and dropped to the floor. After a period of 17 seconds, Dr. P followed the emergency protocol and hit the cutoff switch, terminating all power to Test Lab 1214-2. Dr. P later received a reprimand for failure to react within prescribed time limit. Dr. H was brought to emergency medical facility Blank, where her condition was monitored and found to be stable. She revived after 34 hours, at which point further examination revealed that she had undergone a uniform 23% loss of visual, auditory, tactile, and gustatory acuity. Olfactory acuity was unaffected. Reports 1214, 345 through 347 for speculation on this discrepancy. Dr. H remains under medical supervision until further notice. So, it sounds like after a certain amount of time of running the test, instead of it being the thing saying, please stop, it just switched gears and was like, if you're going to do this to us, we're going to do it to you. And then they deleted 23% of this lady's ability to exist. Except for they deleted 23% of her ability to see, hear, feel, and breathe. At least I think that's what gustatory means. I know that olfactory is smell. I assume gustatory is breathe. So, yeah. Probably leave the random number generator alone. And next up is Phyligeria. Is it Digimon? It's Euclid. It appears to be a book. SCP-1215 must be contained within a locked room pursuant standard level 2 moderate threat type 3 visual stimuli mind-altering protocols. Access requires written approval. Due to the object's age and fragile nature, 1215 must be maintained in a hermetically sealed chamber of inert gas with extremely low humidity at a temperature of 10 degrees Celsius. 1215 should not be exposed to ultraviolet light for longer than absolutely necessary. Routine inspection and maintenance as necessary is to be performed twice monthly for religious disposable dudes certified in the care of rare books and manuscripts. Cooperation of these disposable dudes is ground for indefinite suspension of determination. Failure to comply with these measures will result in the object's significant damage and or destruction. Personnel exposed to 1215 are to be placed in isolation for their own protection and the protection of other personnel. A sincere confession and repentance of one's sins to a qualified priest of the affected personnel's religion, even for religious traditions which do not include a confessional rite, has been shown to cause the effects of 1215 to subside over the following 24 to 48 hours. For non-religious personnel, confessions to individuals holding doctorates in philosophy have proven effective in approximately 60% of cases. Personnel who cry while confessing generally recover more quickly and, if non-religious, have higher likelihoods of recovery. Non-disposable dudes who are asymptomatic after 14 days may resume their previous duties after the successful completion of psychiatric examination. Description: SCP-1215 is a 4th century illuminated manuscript written in medieval Greek on vellum. It was discovered from an archaeological dig of a Byzantine monastery somewhere in Turkey. Illustrations are decorated with both gold and silver. The manuscript is a version of the Phyligeria, apparently an original copy written by the work's author, Avarice, the Solitary Ponticus, a Christian monk and ascetic. The Phyligeria is a treatise on temptation and the 8 evil thoughts, the predecessor to the more modern 7 deadly sins. The text of 1215 varies appreciably from other copies of the work. Individuals exposed to the text or illustrations within 1215 have their behavior altered, though these alterations do not appear to manifest themselves until the individual leaves the immediate proximity of the object. Subjects exhibit behavior consistent with one of the 8 evil thoughts described within the manuscript. Analysis of personnel and disposable dues under the influence of the book suggests that the alterations to their behavior are based on their prior personality. Additional testing for a statistically significant sample is ongoing. The effects vary not only based on which vice manifests itself in the behavior of exposed personnel, but also in the severity of the behavior. Currently, symptoms are divided into 3 phases. Phase 1, initial. Symptoms are exhibited immediately upon leaving the vicinity of 1215 and are sufficiently minor that they may go unnoticed. Intermediate symptoms are exhibited starting approximately 12 to 36 hours after leaving the vicinity, and while noticeable and potentially hazardous, are unlikely to result in permanent harm to the subject or others. Phase 3, terminal symptoms are exhibited starting approximately 48 to 96 hours after leaving the vicinity. The symptoms often result in significant harm to the subject and personnel nearby. Observed effects of 1215 are as follows, though no subjects exposed to 1215 have been known to exhibit more than one of these. Gastromargia, gluttony. The subject develops an intense and insatiable appetite. Phase 1 symptoms are minor feelings of hunger or thirst consistent with having not eaten for several hours. At Phase 2, constantly eating. Phase 3, they eat anything nearby regardless of whether or not the item being devoured would normally be considered food. Porneia, lust. The subject develops extremely heightened libido. Phase 1 symptoms are minor feelings of sexual arousal. Phase 2, they begin to experience hypersexuality and lowered sexual inhibition. At Phase 3, subjects will actively seek out sexual gratification by any means necessary, while simultaneously ignoring other bodily needs. While no subjects have remained in Phase 3 for long enough to confirm this, it is conceivable that an individual suffering from Phase 3 porneia effects could starve to death as a direct result of their symptoms. Phyligeria Avarice. The subject develops excessive greed. Phase 1 consists of a heightened desire for wealth, status, and power. Phase 2, they attempt to acquire material through theft, bribery, or other means. Hoarding is common. Phase 3 are extreme attempts to obtain wealth, including violence, trickery, or manipulation of authority. Hyperephania, hubris. Develops extreme pride. Phase 1 symptoms are minor feelings of pride. Phase 2, a tendency to shame others for being inferior and a sense of gratification from it. Phase 3, more extreme manifestations of Phase 1 and 2, as well as insolence, contempt, and a tendency towards violence against anyone who is perceived to have disparaged the subject. Lipe, envy. The subject develops extreme negative emotions at the good fortune of others. Phase 1 symptoms are minor feelings of jealousy. Phase 2, underhanded attempts to engage in character assassination of those to which they feel jealous. In Phase 3, extremely negative behavior, including strong and persistent attempts at causing misery towards the object of envy, sometimes violence. Ogre, wrath. Orge, wrath. Displays intense and unstoppable rage. Phase 1, minor feelings of annoyance and irritability. Phase 2, pugnacious, though physical altercations are rare. Once Phase 3 has been reached, they will respond to the slightest trigger with extreme fury, which can result in attempts to kill those nearby. Vanity. Kinodoxia. The subject holds an excessive belief in his or her own abilities and or attractiveness to others. Phase 1, feeling of superiority. Phase 2, unjustified boasting. Phase 3, extreme self-idolatry. Note, while subjects displaying Kinodoxia tend to not cause direct harm to themselves or others, they do tend to cause sufficient irritation in those around them that is not uncommon for others to cause them harm. And last is Acedia, which is sloth/dejection. The subject suffers from extreme laziness and despair. Phase 1 symptoms include procrastination and minor feelings of sadness. Phase 2 symptoms are consistent with extreme cases of general depressive disorder. The subject has extreme difficulty mustering the energy necessary to perform non-essential tasks. At Phase 3, they become catatonic. History. Evagrius wrote the Perilogismon as a guide for understanding and learning to overcome temptation. Records recovered from the dig site, see redacted, suggest that 1215 was an attempt by Evagrius to create a morality tool for use by the mostly illiterate general population. Though 1215 has demonstrated effective for its purpose, records found alongside the manuscript suggest it was written earlier, approximately 373 CE, than the more widely known version of the Perilogismon, written 2 years later. According to the records found alongside 1215, Evagrius, then still a lector in Caesarea and a disciple of Basil of Caesarea, created 1215 and presented it to Basil. Basil, 329 or 330 CE, January 379 CE, an influential theologian, later canonized as Saint Basil the Great, apparently rejected his pupil's creation, instructing it to be sealed away and that all subsequent versions of the work had to be substantially censored. Evidence of the censorship can be seen clearly in Chapter 16 of the Perilogismon, where Avarice writes, "I cannot write about all of the villainies of the demons, and I feel ashamed to speak about them at length and in detail, for fear of harming the more simple-minded among my readers." After Basil died in 379 and Evagrius moved to Constantinople in 380, it appears 1215 was forgotten until it was rediscovered in modern times. SCP-1215, as well as the history surrounding it, reinforces theories that the early Christian church was involved in the containment of paranormal and preternatural items. St. Basil of Caesarea, who holds a very important place in the history of the Christian liturgy, is regarded as a father of communal monasticism in Eastern Christianity, as well as a major influence on the Saint Benedict in Western Christianity, is credited with having written no fewer than 3 prayers of exorcism. Evagrius, beyond being the original author of what would eventually become a major tenet of Catholicism, the 7 deadly sins, and being a major influence on many later church figures, was accused of heresy later in life for his esoteric speculations regarding the pre-existence of human souls. The extent to which the early Christian church's possible efforts to contain these items of paranormal and preternatural natures affected the development of Christian ethics, practices, beliefs, and Western culture as a whole is unknown at this time. And we'll be rounding off the episode with these next 5: Pyramid, an office complex, one-way glass, Whistler, and logos. But is that logos or logos? I don't know. Alright, so Pyramid is safe. I don't know what that picture is. Symbol reconstructed from painted fragments of concrete that were broken when SCP-1216-1 was created, believed to represent an instance of it. Alright then, so, a base of operations, Site-144, has been established surrounding 1216-1. Instances of 1216 may be retrieved at a limit of 3 per day. In the event of explorations into 2, personnel are to be equipped with Environmental Protection Ensemble 12 Desert. Instances of 4 are to be tracked by satellite from Site-144, and when located, temporary containment is to be set up. Temporary 4 containment is to consist of a concrete moored gap-free wooden fence circumscribing the instance's range. Given the nature of the sites at which instances of 4 appear, civilians are to be removed from the premises of any 4 containment site. Lost my place, apologies. Of any 4 containment site under the artifice of enforcing industrial safety standards. Upon dissipation of a 4 instance, temporary containment is to be ended. In the event that there are no suitable sites left for the appearance of instances of 4, replica sites are to be constructed in secure facilities and continually replenished with scrap metal. Okay. Description: SCP-1216 is a species of pyramidal organisms native to an extra-dimensional space adjacent to Lenox, Massachusetts. However, they do not exhibit several characteristics of living organisms, among them reproduction and metabolism. I can't help but wonder if this is based off of that one episode of Welcome to Night Vale with the pyramid, but I don't know when this was written, and I also, for all I know, the author of some of these entries watch my videos, and they might want to stab me for having even made that connection. Anyway, the organisms range in scale from 5 centimeters tall and 0.33 kilograms to Ca 700 centimeters tall and 7,540 kilograms, but are otherwise identical in appearance and proportions. Instances of 1216 have a square pyramid body with a base length of exactly 1.5 times its height, with a thin, flexible, bowed leg on each lower vertex. Their legs are cylindrical and allow them to move in any direction without turning their bodies. They also have a pair of curved, cylindrical, flexible antennae attached to the uppermost vertex of their body. Not vortex, there's an E. Situated at the ends of the antenna are 2 solid spheres composed of beryllium bronze with density 8.78 grams per centimeter cubed. Except for the beryllium bronze spheres, instances of 1216 are composed of an anomalous protein, henceforth pyramidin, which seems to be similar in construction to chitin, or chitin. I've never actually tried to say that out loud. I don't know how it's pronounced. Except that it has a bulk modulus and density comparable to that of cobalt, not cobalt. Pyramidin partially blocks EM radiation and does not break down chemically, frustrating spectrographic, electromicroscopic, and chemical analysis. From macroscopic observation, it is dark gray, non-reflective, non-porous, and always cool to the touch. On the underside of the body is a conical mouth containing a, oh my god, proteinaceous turbine? By spinning this turbine, instances of 1216 are able to generate suction. Above the turbine, there is a dense wrinkled mass of pyramitin, which is impenetrable both to scans and dissection. The turbine and the mass above it appear to be the only internal organs. The rest of the hollow body cavity is filled with sand and particles of iron oxide. The extra-dimensional space to which it is native, 2, is an unbounded flat expanse of subtropical desert. The expanse is lit by a small stationary sun located 48 degrees above the horizon and 66 degrees east from due south, heating it to a constant 26 degrees Celsius. These measurements remain the same no matter how far or in what direction one travels. It is of note that powered flight is not possible within 1216-2. By process of elimination, it appears to be an unknown quality of the atmosphere. At current estimates, there are about 5,100 instances of 1216 of various sizes inhabiting 2. 1216 typically scuttle around the expanse in random patterns. On a constant basis, pieces of man-made scrap metal, ranging from nuts and bolts to the chassis of heavy construction machinery, emerge from the sand and are consumed by 1216 through turbine suction. They gain no mass from the consumption. X-ray fluoroscopy scans show that the metal entering the dense organ in the center of the body and subsequently disappearing. 1216 are able to communicate with one another through flexing their antenna and tapping their beryllium bronze spheres together in rhythmic patterns. This produces a clicking sound that echoes for a far longer time than can be replicated. Larger instances of 1216 produce deeper sounds, move more slowly, and eat larger pieces of scrap metal. They do not regard humans as threats and make no attempts to interact with them. 1216 that were deliberately assaulted by disposable dudes had no significant reaction and took no action against them. When scrap metal was taken from them as they were about to consume it, they lost interest and found other pieces. Several instances of 1216 have been successfully captured, transported into Site-144, and dissected, with no resistance offered by the individual or the group. Dead instances of 1216, the term is ambiguous given their lack of life signs, although they do stop moving when dissected, are replaced after some time by 3. The main feature of SCP-1216-2 is 1216-3, a 400-meter tall pyramid composed of the same protein as the instances of 1216, and with the same proportions. Aperiodically, 3 will slowly excrete instances of 1216 from its surface. These will stay the same size as which they were created. 3 is wholly impenetrable to all scans. It remains cool despite being in perpetual sunlight. 2 is accessible through an irregularly shaped portal. SCP-1216-1 is probably the portal, about 1.3 meters wide and 2.5 meters tall, and a broken section of concrete wall on the first floor of a parking structure in Lenox, Massachusetts. Its existence was first noted shortly after Lenox was affected by the 2011 Virginia earthquake. Subsequently, several stray instances of 1216 exited it and were captured on security camera, thus alerting the Foundation to their 1 and ultimately 2's existence. From inside, 1 floats 3 centimeters above the ground and is effectively flat. It has depth, its inner edge is made of concrete wall, but is only visible when facing its opening and cannot be seen from the back, even though the non-visible side feels like a solid barrier. Otherwise, on the other side of the concrete wall, the hole simply allows one-way sight, but not passage through it. It feels solid. Passing through the portal offers no adverse effects to human life. At intervals of 2 to 5 days, a secondary portal to 2 will be established at any location on Earth which contains large amounts of discarded scrap metal, e.g. junkyards, shipwrecks, or garbage dumps. The secondary portal, known as an instance of 4, manifests as a whirlpool of desert sand at the lowest point of the area. 4 may be between 3 meters and 12 meters in diameter, and all solid unsecured matter within a range of twice the diameter is then sucked into 4, ultimately re-emerging in the extra-dimensional space. The reason why only scrap metal emerges from the ground in 2 is as of yet unknown. Non-metallic matter, including organic matter, does not appear in the expanse and is presumed lost. When all available matter has been sucked into 4, it consumes itself and shrinks in size until it has vanished, leaving no trace. Instances of 4 started appearing only after 1 opened. This article was written in a weird way. It feels like there could have been addendums and, breaks added in, like usually, but there weren't any. Now it's time for an office complex, which is safe. prior to Foundation involvement. Well, what does it look like now? A barbed wire fence is with a single gate to allow authorized access to be maintained in an area surrounding 1217's active zone, around which several chemical hazard signs are to be placed in clear view. Multiple CCTV cameras are to be set up in a perimeter around the active zone, monitored by a nearby observation post, OP-1217 Alpha. A minimum of 2 guards are to be present at the station at all times. Any unauthorized individuals attempting to enter 1217 are to be detained, interviewed, and, if they present no clear threat, released after being provided with a Class C amnestic. Several enclosed rooms near the entrance of 1217-1 have been modified and equipped with an observational apparatus to serve as testing chambers. An experimentation involving 2 is to take place only in these designated areas. Please refer to document 1217A. Subject should be placed into these chambers, released, and monitored. After the experiment is complete, the refuse is to be removed and disposed of via incineration. I just want to point out the fact that they probably wouldn't need to keep amnesticizing people if they stopped conducting interviews on them. Like, if they saw somebody coming in and they're like, "Sir, we need you to leave, this place is being guarded and you're not allowed in." And if they are actually willing to leave, just let them leave. You don't need to waste time with interviews and then giving them amnestics, because if you don't interview them, then they don't have to find out there's anything wrong other than it being a guarded office building, because guarding an office building is normal, and y'all really didn't need to do that. Y'all are just stupid. Anyway, SCP-1217 consists of 2 parts. One, formerly an office complex owned by the Blank Corporation, located in Redacted, Massachusetts. A lot of Massachusetts in this particular show. I was going to say today, but there's just the one video for y'all. This is the 4th day of me recording. The 250 by 2 by 300 meter area surrounding one is considered the active zone. At SCP-1217-2, any member of the species Felis catus, which enters the active zone, which I assume is just cats. Is the scientific name for cats really just Felis catus? That... I shouldn't be surprised, but I thought it would have been more complicated than that. Upon entering the aforementioned area, a specimen of 2 will display no significant behavioral deviations from its previous activity, apart from attempting to remain within the active zone of 1217 and responding aggressively to any attempts to remove it from said area. Which is just what cats do. Removing it is still possible, however, successfully removing a subject from the area will not prevent the anomalous event associated with 1217 from occurring. 15 to 20 minutes after entering the area, specimens will begin acting in a notably erratic manner, which typically involves spontaneous pouncing and vocalizing. Several minutes following this, subjects will protract their claws and attempt to repeatedly lacerate their underbelly. Shortly after this begins, specimens will, if unimpeded, succeed in disemboweling themselves, despite pain, shock, or other associated sensations which would result. The viscera and blood released from the aforementioned process will invariably form itself into a shape resembling a short, semi-coherent sentence consisting of English characters. Said characters will vary between instances of 2 and possess occasional notable spelling and grammatical errors. The text constituting these sentences largely consists of blood, which will retain this shape if left undisturbed until drying. Extracts of other organs, particularly the colon and intestinal tracts, have been known to fold in such a way to form appropriate letters if cut from the original lacerations, though this is a rare occurrence. Excess tissue does not appear to be affected, and pulls normally a short distance away from the remaining substance. The means by which the aforementioned viscera assumes shape of coherent text is currently unknown. The anomalous properties of 1217 came to the attention of the Foundation in 2005 when a stray cat entered its active zone before initiating expected behavior in front of several blank employees. The building was then transferred into Foundation possession, relevant witnesses were administered Class B amnestics, and a cover story regarding the discovery and continued removal of asbestos from the building was released. Excerpt from the document 1217B. Note, the following are copied as accurately as possible from the original text produced as a result of successive tests. For an extensive log of all messages produced, please refer to the relevant documentations. Is this it? Why can't it? Can I play too? Incident 1. Between tests 13 and 19, the text produced by 1217 began deviating significantly from its previously established patterns, as follows. What happens new? I'm sick of this. I'm sick of making them talk. I want to stop it for now. Stop it. Stop! 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 Shortly after this, Dr. Blank requested an extended reprieve from experimentation, which was approved by O5 Blank. Testing was stopped between 2000-something, April something, and something something something, at which point it was resumed. The resulting text appears to be consistent with the usual pattern of that produced by 1217. I'm so sorry. It's all lost. He hates us. Let us go. Okie dokie? A lot of 1200 just seems to be weird and ominous instead of actually being things that are dangerous. One-way glass. I said sorry, but I'm not even sure if you could actually see what just happened. I misclicked, but I don't know if the misclick showed up for y'all, because I don't have it set for my cursor and click effects to actually show when I'm doing this. Maybe I should, so then it isn't just like phantom lines showing up. Anyway, special containment procedures for 1218, which is safe. All instances of 1 are to be kept within specially fitted crates in protected storage wing L3 of Site 28. Most instances of 1 are fragile, and care should be taken when retrieving, transporting, and storing them. Due to the potential for information leaks, instances of 1 must remain covered when in presence of any sensitive Foundation material. Any contact with or appearances of 2 are to be recorded and logged. Description: all instances of SCP-1218-1 are numbered as 1XX in the order they were recovered. As of the most recent update of this document, 111 through 132 are all in storage minus 14, see testing logs. Instances of 1 all appear to be normal wall-mounted mirrors, most frequently rectangular with sizes between 0.2 and 9.5 square meters. Upon closer inspection, the objects are in fact one-way reflective glass, with an extremely dark room visible on the other side when viewed in absolute darkness to minimize reflections. The dark rooms, hereafter known as viewing chambers, appear to have floors and ceilings of a cracked concrete-like material with various raised platforms that 2 sit on. There are no sidewalls visible, with viewing distance tapering off quickly into darkness. Each mirror appears to link to a unique viewing chamber sharing these same characteristics. 2 refers to the group of creatures between 1.5 and 1.9 meters tall that are frequently visible in the viewing chambers. They appear humanoid with heavily jaundiced skin of a leathery appearance that obscures defining features. Each creature has 4 wounds on its head, holes ringed in torn flesh that are roughly equivalent in position to a human's eyes, nose, and mouth. The creatures, hereafter referred to as the Yellow Men, wear moth-eaten suits identified as those in style in the 19-somethings. 2 appear aware of viewers in front of 1 and have been seen to not only follow the movements of test subjects, but to actively take notes in what seems to be a blank brand notebook. Dr. Blank's recovered testing logs. We've ruled out the idea of some sort of projection. Test subjects moving to different positions have their field of view through the mirror change accordingly. The subjects were visibly startled when 2 followed their movements, leading 1 to panic and 1 to scream. Lights were brought up and subjects removed from the test chamber. It appears that at light levels below 1 lux, our test subjects start to become uneasy around 1. They describe either the feeling of being watched or of the room being larger than it appears. I theorize that their subconscious is picking up on subtle visual clues of the viewing room beyond the mirrors that is still too overwhelmed by reflections for their conscious brains to identify. I've rigged up the testing room with hidden low-light cameras, which are able to pick up just enough light to make their tapes worthwhile to repeat studies. Continued testing on multiple instances of 1 suggests that each is linked to a separate room, though the number of viewing 2 changes, suggesting that they may enter and leave the rooms throughout the day. Also of note, it appears that the primary mode of lighting that allows the viewing room to be seen is the embers of a cigarette. If none of 2 are smoking, it stands to reason that the viewing room would be pitch black. It's possible that this accounts for the instances when we are unable to see anything through the mirror, even in utter darkness. So far, I've managed to identify at least 19 unique yellow men from the viewing logs. Their facial and body structures are extremely similar, but blemishes on the skin, height, and the suits they're wearing are enough to distinguish one from another. Note that these individuals do not always appear in the same viewing room. Testing on disposable dudes so far has had no adverse effects from exposure to 1 or 2. I have therefore decided that it is safe for my assistants and I to perform tests directly. Given the quantity of 1 we've received, I have approved testing to try breaking one to see if it retains its effects. Shattering an instance of one does cause it to cease displaying any anomalous effects, however, redacted, like rotting fruit, which quickly dissipated. One of my assistants came to me today with something I had missed in the early experiments. She noticed that when Subject D9002 screamed in fright, one of the yellow men stepped back suddenly as if startled. I wonder if perhaps sound might connect these locations as well. I've added a laser microphone to the complement of recording devices trained on 1.5. We've picked up the following anomalous sounds, see an audio log summary. 2 continues to intrigue me. They respond to my actions as if they can see me clearly, though personally I don't know how they can see anything. The low light has made it impossible to determine as of yet if they are in fact eyes beneath those shredded sockets. It's like watching animals at a zoo. They move to follow our actions, but don't reciprocate any attempts to communicate. I'm curious what they're writing. It's too bad that there isn't enough light to read it. More instances of one continue to be brought in. Now that we know their properties, we've begun going through old reports from blank and blank database to gather more leads. Mobile Task Force Beta 6, the Window Washers, has been created to not only collect more of these mirrors, but to try and trace their origin. I'll have to go through my notes, but it seems like there are more too than usual appearing for my tests. We have 26 instances of one in storage as of this date, having exhausted pre-existing leads. I worry that given the difficulty in noticing the effects, there could be many more out there. I know there are more now. The most recent test had over 10 of them watching. I don't like this. I've taken the testing tapes home by redacted, and I'm going to pore over every frame till I find something of use. I've spent the last 3 nights poring over the tapes. I think the lack of sleep is getting to me. I was walking past the mirror in hallway H7 today, and I could have sworn I saw something looking out at me. I broke the mirror in the hallway, at least now I'm sure. I figured it out. I should have been looking closer at the details on their redacted. I'm not sure, but I might know where and what they are. End of record. See incident H1218A. Well, that's here. Okay, so the following noises were picked up by the laser microphone over a 7-day period. Sound analysis software has been used to identify the most likely source of each sound, as well as its likelihood of accuracy, and the number of times it occurred. Footsteps in socks. Footsteps in loafers. Dripping water. Animal noise, cat purring. Running water from a faucet. A human adult chewing. Adult unintelligible voices. A falling rubber tubing. Running water from a shower. A forklift. Children. An adult snoring. Redacted. Children laughing. An ambulance siren. SCP something. Shaking chains. Shattering glass. An adult female talking. And an adult female screaming. Now, Incident A. On blank blank blank, Dr. Blank was found dead at his private residence. He was discovered hanging by a noose in his attic after failing to show up for work for 3 days. Forensic evidence at the scene suggested suicide. Every single mirror in his house was found shattered. According to standard protocol, further testing on 1218 is to be postponed until all possible mimetic or mental influence is ruled out. Addendum A. Additional scrutiny of the mirror fragments of the home of Dr. Blank find that redacted and consistent with being shattered by a blow or weapon. The video logs were also missing from the scene. Additional investigations are underway to ascertain all details of H1218A. Addendum B. 1218 is currently pending upgrade to Euclid status. This was last updated on January 27th, 2020. It's still safe, but it sounds like what probably happened is, since they redacted it, it sounds like what happens is since he said he figured out what they are and where they are and what they're doing, they probably came after him through the mirrors in his house and then rigged it up to look like he did that to himself. But it's pending its Euclid, so maybe that'll change later. If that one updates to have more interesting stuff, let me know. Next up is the Whistler, which is Euclid. 1219 is to be contained within a sealed area, minimum size 2 meters cubed, maximum size 5 meters cubed, in complete darkness, light level less than 0.0001 lux, situated at least a kilometer from any other occupied dark area. This chamber should be outfitted with overhead lighting controlled by an external switch. As of blankety blank blank, 1219 is housed at storage site someplace. Personnel entering the darkened containment area for testing purposes must refrain from vocal utterances unless otherwise instructed by research staff. Description: such that it is. The entity or event labeled SCP-1219 may manifest at any time within a sufficiently dark area of suitable size, determined to be minimum 2 meters cubed. Is this going to be one of those SCPs that messes up my ability to sleep for a few weeks like the old man did? Because I'm already afraid of the dark, don't do this. Maximum unknown. Provided at least one sentient being is present to witness the phenomenon. 1219 manifests as a whistled version of the song Camptown Races, which rises gradually and erratically in volume until audible to those present in the area. The entity or event will not manifest in the presence of an infrared camera or other low-light recording devices. No anomalous effects have been noted in relation to audio recordings of 1219. Once triggered, the whistled song lasts for an apparently unlimited duration, generally until light exposure occurs. However, the song will cease within 10 to 20 seconds of a witness or witnesses attempt to whistle, hum, sing, or otherwise engage with the tune, and the witnesses will be dismembered, stripped primarily of organs related to vocalization, and severely flayed with marks similar to those inflicted by a bullwhip along the neck, back, and legs, resulting in immediate or delayed death in 100% of observed cases. The whistle does not appear to compel this engagement. Dismemberment and flaying occurs rapidly and cannot be prevented by the introduction of light to the containment chamber. No physical component to SCP-1219 has been recorded or identified. It has been found capable of instantaneous transfer within a distance of approximately a kilometer. If exposed to light, the entity or event will cease immediately and recur in the nearest suitable dark space inside its transfer range. If no such space is available, it appears to enter a passive state and will not recur until an accessible area meets all criteria for manifestation. Researchers speculate that 1219 may be permanently incapacitated via constant illumination of this 1 kilometer area. No termination attempts are scheduled at this time. Acquisition Log 1. 1219 was first documented on August the 16th at some point, someplace, in an apartment complex somewhere. A paranormal investigation team from the television series Blank Blank responded to residents' claims of unusual activity. Reports from residents matched the Foundation's current knowledge of 1219. The Foundation acquired the team's unaired footage. A partial transcript follows. Video log, timestamp 22/18/29. Infrared footage shows a brief shot of a man's face, then swings around to show a room containing a twin-sized bed in the shape of a race car, a bookshelf, book spines unreadable, and a wall shelf lined with action figures. The camera is aimed from the foot of the bed towards the far wall. Is this? Here we go. I'm all set up in the second bedroom in the apartment. Apartment blank with the infrared camera, my trusty EMF reader, couple of thermometers, and an EVP recorder. Shot pans down to electronic equipment on the floor. Team member. So, we're gonna pick up changes in the electromagnetic fields, cold spots, and we're hoping for some nice clear sounds tonight. They told us this is where the event occurs pretty often, so we're going to settle in and see if we get any unusual recordings. Transcript cut to timestamp 1:27:05. So, we've been here for about 3 hours. Blaine says he's caught some temperature fluctuation in the master bedroom, but I haven't seen much activity in here, so just a quick dip in it. Hang on. Battery lights blinking on the camera. We'll have to rely on the tapes for a minute here. Video log ends. Acquisition log 1B. Team sound recorder B. Muffled clacking. Batteries, shit. Researchers note volume increases and audio filter on acquired tape shows the entity or event manifests approximately 128.45, with fluctuating decibel level of 1040. Net rise in decibel level brings the sound into audible human range after approximately 9 seconds. At second chorus, team member Blank begins humming Camptown Races slightly off-key, decibel range 40 to 50. Team member ceases humming, 1219 heard clearly against ambient sound. Are you? Ceases, loud clatter. Unintelligible scream, heavy crash. Gurgling speech, redacted, see acquisition log B2, or 1B2. Upon Mobile Task Force Pi 1's arrival, Class A amnestics were administered to all surviving civilian parties involved. Human body and skin shreds, as well as partial lip, vocal cord, and lung fragments were recovered from the site. Testing positively identified them as the remains of investigation team member Blank Blank. The remains showed no anomalous properties. 1219 was transferred to storage site Blank at some day via darkened transport unit and successfully contained without incident. Acquisition log 1B2, access restricted to personnel with level 3. What the hell did I just say? Level 3 clearance and above. Alright, so, upon study, researchers found investigation team member someone initially unintelligible final words to be coherent if hampered by 1219's effects. A full transcript of acquisition log 1B follows. Muffled clacking. Batteries, shit. Are you? Loud clatter, unintelligible scream. Sorry, I'm sorry. Transcript redacted on blank after all disposable dudes exposed to the effects made similar final utterances for reasons unknown. All of them expired prior to full interrogation. Further testing and background investigation of 1219 recommended. I would think they were apologizing for humming since they got killed for it. Why is that so difficult for y'all to pick up on? If you know it kills people specifically for them trying to sing along, you don't think that their last act of aliveness wouldn't be to try to apologize for it? Like, I'm so sorry that I interrupted your singing. Please don't rip out my goddamn lungs. Why is the SCP Foundation so fucking stupid? Anyway, SCP-1220 is safe. There was a lot of safes in this episode that didn't feel like it. Like, again, I know that safe now means it can be contained and not what it does. Because there's a whole lot of things that are safe because you could just put them in a freaking desk drawer and be fine. But if you so much as look at it for too long, your brain flips inside out. But since you can just put it in a drawer and then not look at it, it's safe. Never mind flipping your brain inside out, just don't look at it. Unless you have to look at it because you're a disposable dude and that's what they're for. So, SCP-1220 is to be contained in 3 compact cassette cases clearly marked with their designation. The cases will be sealed with tamper-evident tape and stored in a locking drawer along with all research notes pertaining to them. Due to the sensitive nature of 1220, any recording of spoken 1220 may not be digitized without permission from 3 personnel ranking level 4 or higher. If it is to be digitized, the data is to be stored on a computer with no or disabled network capacity to prevent unauthorized access to 1220. Pending further review, no personnel are permitted to expose themselves or others to SCP-1220. Description: SCP-1220 is an unknown, possibly dead language. It does not appear to belong to any known language family. It is a tonal language similar to Mandarin, and shares a similar compounding structure for forming complex words. However, the number of phonemes used in 1220 are far in excess of those used in any other language. Some phonemes recorded appear to be unique, such as phoneme blank, chirp A. Several of the phonemes are utterances with which the human vocal apparatus was not meant to accommodate, yet the only known native speaker seems to have no difficulty reproducing them multiple times in rapid succession. The only known recording of 1220 is a set of 3 cassette tape cases, containing 2 hours and 34 minutes of recording. The recording is of a linguistic survey with an elderly woman. Interviewer begins by identifying the woman as one Ms. Someone, and states that she is one of the last native speakers of a language identified only as something. The interviewer goes on to explain that the lady had offered to tell her a story in her native language, and once more in English. His explanation complete, the interviewer sets the recorder down on the table, and the lady begins to tell the story. Once she finished the story, she repeats it once again in English, and the tape ends. The story is a variant on the global flood story present in many Mediterranean cultures. The story outlines a great flood that covered the world and one man who survived. The man, finding himself in a barren world, scooped up several handfuls of clay and instructed them of their new purpose, whereupon the clay erupted into a handful of wheat, an ox, another human being, and data expunged. Recorded instances of 1220, such as those on the tapes, appear to be inert and safe for study. However, when a living subject vocalizes in 1220, a zone of anomalous space is produced. The mechanism behind the production of the zone is as yet undetermined, though the result is consistent with all test subjects. The zone has been measured extending as far away as 10 meters from the speaker, though the zone is generally smaller, averaging a sphere with a radius of 2 meters. The exact nature of the zone is dependent on the nature of the utterance. This property was discovered by Dr. Blank, 1220, who was on September the 5th blank pronounced morpheme blank for fire, whereupon the sleeve of his coat began to smolder. The doctor was treated for second-degree burns, and the coat has been placed in containment, where it continues to smolder. Following the incident, stricter precautions were instated regarding access to 1220, and testing proper began. For more information, refer to the attached test logs. Alright. Test log for Dr. Blank, September the 14th, some year. Test subject, junior assistant somebody. Native language, English, American derivation? Word spoken, morpheme blank for rain. Result, area around the subject extending in a 3.11 meter experienced rainfall. The rain did not appear to originate from ambient atmospheric moisture and fell at an angle suggesting wind, which was not felt outside of the zone. Subject initially reported that the rain was pleasantly warm, and initial sampling found that the precipitation was composed of water with some particulate matter. The zone was found to follow subject, and the moisture left behind by the zone passage remained persistent even after the anomaly ended. Subject reported skin irritation beginning 1 minute after the end of the anomaly, which increased over time. Subject was washed in an on-site emergency shower and was later treated for mild chemical burns. Examination of the precipitation samples afterwards revealed that the water became an aqueous solution of HCl. Or is that HCl? The recorded concentration of the sample was far higher than what was suggested by the subject's reaction. Continued testing revealed that the solution was increasing in concentration over time until an hour after the end of the anomalous event, whereupon the contents of the sample contained only gaseous HCl. Following the events of the test, protocols were revised to forbid testing by non-D-class personnel. Okay, so new day, new test subject. The word is for clay. The ground surrounding them, out to 2.01 meters, was transmuted into red clay. The effect began at their feet and radiated outwards. The wave continued until it reached the anomaly boundary, whereupon it abruptly ended. Subject was asked to move around on the clay, which was found to be stable. The boundary of the anomaly shifted with the subject, with the clay left outside of the anomaly rapidly transmuting back to its former state, while surfaces that entered the anomaly zone were transmuted into clay. Subject acquired a sample of the clay using a stainless steel trowel, which showed no signs of reaction. The sample was found to be soft enough to deform by hand. Once pressure was removed, the sample returned to its original shape, demonstrating a memory foam-like quality. Subject reported that the clay felt abrasive, similar to large grit sandpaper, even through the work gloves they had been issued. Sample was bagged and removed from anomaly zone. It remained clay upon removal and is currently available for study. 5 minutes after the initial anomalous event, subject reported piercing pain in left foot. On the spot, inspection revealed an organism burrowing into the ball of their foot, having pierced through 4 centimeters of rubber to do so. The organism, designated as 1220A, was removed via on-site medical personnel and placed in a sample bag along with an additional sample of the clay. A appears to be some form of terrestrial roundworm, measuring 6 centimeters, possessing a hardened exoskeleton and an enlarged mouth, containing tooth-like growths similar in shape and function to a lamprey's teeth. A is alive at time of writing and currently available for study. Subject requested a chair following a encounter with A. Request was authorized and subject remained seated for the remainder of the test. 10 minutes after the initial anomalous event, subject reported instability in the chair. Shortly afterwards, the clay began to liquefy, becoming quicksand-like in behavior. Subject was ordered to remain in place as the chair sunk into the clay. More samples of A were spotted around the chair as the area of transmuted clay began to recede. Subject at this point violated experimental procedure by leaping away from the chair, attempting to avoid immersion in the clay. The anomalous zone followed them in flight, and upon landing, the subject was completely immersed in clay. Rescue attempts were considered, but before any plan could be put into action, the anomalous zone had disappeared. The fate of the disposable person is currently unknown. The folding chair used in the experiment was severed by the movement of the anomalous zone, and the remaining pieces appear to have been separated from the rest of the chair as if by a sharp blade. Test log, different day, different person, native language, Spanish, Mexican derivation, were spoken, morphine blank, ness having qualities of. After the previous 2 tests, the doctor requested testing on non-nouns. Anomalous zone not observed in this test. Subject reported a sensation of being watched, along with occasional sense similar to burning tires, and a greasy feel that traveled along their arm. Outside observers were unable to confirm any scent or oiliness before the anomalous event ended. Okay. Same person, new day. Morphine word compounded by morphine wood. Clayness having qualities of clay. Anomalous zone again not observed. Subject initially reported feelings of physical wellness, of sturdiness, and immovability. 2 minutes and 26 seconds after that, they reported stiffness in limbs. 2 minutes later, their skin became clay-like, originating from the mouth and spreading outwards. They were unable to communicate with staff during the transmutation, which eventually encompassed the whole of their body. Samples collected after the fact show that this transformation was complete and that their whole mass was clay. Okay, new person who speaks Mandarin. They spoke the word for Covenant communion data expunged. Result, immediately following vocalization and continuing for 33 seconds after vocalization, research sector blank experienced seismic activity recorded at 3.2 MW. Seismic event faded gradually, ceasing completely after 2 minutes. Sutter began to report sensations of contact, describing hands running over her skin. Staff within 10 meters of them reported similar sensations. Sensations became overwhelming at 4 minutes and 15 seconds, whereupon she collapsed. Subject begins reporting visual, auditory, and tactile hallucinations. They included a flock of bats covered in bleached bone plates swarming around the subject, a city made out of melted green glass, a tall figure with a head resembling a compound eye, surrounded by sourceless plates of light. Upon reporting the last hallucination, the described figure became visible to all staff within the testing chamber. The figure seized the subject, and both vanished. Later review of security footage did not record the presence of the figure designated B. Well, that might be Beta, actually. Further experimentation is suspended indefinitely pending further review. Agents encountering instances of 1220 in the wild are ordered to not engage with the speaker and instead to notify the Home Office. Further actions will be handled on a case-by-case basis. Well, dang. So, that does it for this episode. I continued increasing it up to 1225 because if I do 25 entries per episode, one, that would be a whole week of SCPs in one video, but it would also make me finish a week faster. Instead of finishing on October the 1st, I'd finish on the last Friday of September. But at the same time, no. So, that does it for, I believe this is episode 238 of Let's Read the SCP Foundation Wiki. If you liked it, a like and a subscribe would be groovy. If you didn't, you don't need to do either one of those things. If you want to click the bell, you can do that as well so that you're notified of future uploads, and I will see y'all in the next one. Later!